maybe we ought to very quickly take care of allowing Ron to vote in the meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, that Ron should be able to vote in the meeting. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries 6 to 0. Okay. Approval of the October 13th minutes. I should tell you that I even post the minutes that Diane sent you. I made a few very minor word changes and things to clarify and inserted a couple of words. It's nothing substantive at all. So they're basically the set of minutes that Diane sent you. So
I'll make a motion the minutes be accepted.
Second.
motion moved and seconded that the minutes of the October 13th meeting be approved. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes. 7 to 0. Okay. Nancy, the financials.
Financials.
Yeah.
The profit and loss that I sent you was the last one for fiscal year 2016. There's a few differences from the budget, most of them all good. Our fire impact fees were much higher than the estimated budget for 25,000, whereas in the budget we actually collected 174,000.
Right.
But I think that was explained at that meeting, that guy came that was.
Right.
selling
Should
those.
we budget any fire impact fees for next year?
I don't do that part of the budget, and I
Yeah.
haven't seen their budget yet for this year.
Uh-huh.
But I would assume that we do.
Yeah.
So, 'cause the only part we do is the part that's the HOA
Yeah.
portion, so all the income comes from, Severn.
Yeah.
And then also the interest income was higher than expected. We budgeted 10,000, and we had, just over 15. I think that's because we moved more money into the CDs than we originally had. And then I just looked at the two main categories of expenses, the residence operating and then the shared. And we were below our budget in both of those areas. Of course, we knew the ponds would be over budget. And so overall for the year, we came out pretty well. And I noticed in the minutes last month, you talked about the reserves, and it looks like they have transferred that money in now to the reserve account from just the.
Oh, they have? Okay.
Yeah,
I thought we had to specifically recommend that to the board.
Well, at the end of August, there was 597, 123 in the reserve, and now there's 960,000 in it. So I think if you go back to last year's budget, it showed that $300 and some thousand dollars.
Right.
So it looks like they transferred that over at the end of the fiscal year. I think if we wanted more to go, that we would have to recommend to them, but.
As long as it's the budget.
It was in the budget. So I haven't input everything for this year. When I was looking at everything over the course of this year since I took this over, I noticed the budget in our QuickBooks didn't exactly tie into the budget that Severn Trent had. And I never could figure out why. It was, I don't know, $30,000, $40,000 difference. So kind of waiting until I see everything final from Severn Trent before I input to start the new fiscal year, so that I know I'm starting out exactly with the same numbers they do. Because theirs are the audited numbers. I figure theirs are the Bible, the ones we know are correct. So.
They won't be finalized much before the first of the year.
No, but I'll do it before then, but.
Try to mess it up. We really won't know what it was.
No, but we'll.
Won't change
When we
much.
get the October statements from them, I'll at least see what the budget is for them, that I can go ahead and start our budget, make sure it matches theirs exactly.
Nancy, I have a couple of questions that came up as I was reviewing this. I noticed that we didn't spend anything on ACA and the access control. We had budgeted, that extra $21,000 and showing 0. And I'm kind of curious as to.
That's not being broken out on the invoices that we get, so
Okay,
I don't know.
so it's part of the fee.
Yeah, and I don't know that we necessarily need to keep that as a separate line item in the budget.
Well, I don't think we do.
No, it's all part of the invoice.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I
Spend
thought
line.
it had been kind of rolled into the.
Exactly
okay,
right.
It's in the contract
Yep,
law.
yep.
And in our budget, it was shown as a separate line item, and so
Yeah.
I think when I set the budget this year, I'll just roll it all into one instead of
Yep,
showing it separate.
that's correct.
And there was a very minor, it's a very minor item, but that we had budgeted for perimeter sector monitoring. I guess, I don't know why we did that, I guess that's it.
Last year?
Yeah, apparently. So that, we can, oh, no, that we spent, we didn't budget for it, but we spent, I don't know what we did. Would that have been a bill, you know, from,
I'm looking for it.
Securitas? It's number,
$175.
$175. It's the second one, the third one from the bottom,
Oh.
on the first page.
I don't know why that would be
Yeah.
a separate line item, but it's probably all built into.
And then I noticed, over on the second page.
Really read this
It's hard to read, don't see.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry,
Shocking
Mr.
thought.
Chairman. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Maybe I need to make the print a little smaller.
That's the reason the meetings are so long.
There you go.
That's the reason the meetings are so long,
Could you read
guys.
Okay, what's on the second page?
The Main Street lighting, electrical. We're over there, but we're obviously under in Cypress Grove Street lighting electrical. And I thought one of the problems was we couldn't differentiate between Cypress Grove and our own. And I'm just wondering how those numbers all fell into place. In net, we're down slightly, but I was, it just looks a little confusing the way it's
I'll go
there.
back and look at the invoices.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
See how we're reading into the different categories.
But they haven't conveyed Cypress Grove yet.
Right.
But they haven't,
So
well,
we're gonna be paying for that.
well, but we have because of a mix-up on the,
Right.
on the bills. And we're gonna try and go back
Go back and-
retroactively and get
That's
that
what I
money
thought,
back.
okay.
Yeah, and so it seems to me, we need to understand, how much
We
we
can't ask
spent
for
there.
a clockwork like change.
No, but if-
That would be
impossible.
impossible.
And if we can go back and figure it out, I don't know if that's something we can do in Ansar, how
Well,
much is
it
Cypress
seems,
Grove?
it seems to me, Nancy, that probably what we're gonna have to do is just come to some kind of agreement with WCI as to what an allocation would be. I mean, you're never gonna be able to figure out
No.
exactly what the number is.
Yeah.
But you can.
We had enough bills before Cypress Grove was put in to give us a good average,
Okay.
and just say that's what we should
We-
pay.
yeah.
And then once Cypress
Go
Grove
that,
starts,
okay, yeah. Either that or,
5 years worth of data. is a
either
lot.
that or count the number of light posts and.
And divide it out.
And divide it out,
Which
I mean,
might almost be easier because of changes in rates and stuff.
Yeah,
over time.
yeah, we
Okay,
can
and
come
we
up.
know how many light posts we have.
If we.
Yeah, I mean, they continue to add them, but.
Yeah.
If we,
Well, that's another
That's the other problem.
that's a problem. Well, if we come to, if WCI agrees to do that, it seems to me we can come up with some kind of a reasonable
Yeah.
allocation
Okay.
procedure.
The other question I had, and I had emailed Jason, in the bills that came through this month, there was, I don't know if you noticed that somebody hit the, sign on the gatehouse with the clearance, and I think you told me they hit it twice. No?
Same person.
No.
No. So my question back to him was, are we getting reimbursed
Yeah.
by their insurance?
Yes.
But I see the bills come through all the time, but how is the reimbursement handled? Like, we pay you for the, we reimburse you to pay those expenses, but how are we getting credited back when?
When we get the check back, we deposit it to the operating account and
Mhm.
assign it to that line item. So we had to do the repairs first and invoice to the insurance company.
Right.
So that they would send the check
Right,
back.
but what I'm saying is that when I do our financial statements, I'm including an expense for these items, but I'm never reducing that expense when we get reimbursed for it. So our budget.
Well, I guess, yeah, because I guess you don't see the
We
deposit
never
go back
see
in.
that, no.
So, I mean, it really is just a pass-through, so I don't even know that you need to, I don't know how.
Well, except you're getting the funds from Gateway to pay that, and how is that money going back?
You need to be notified. I'm familiar with QuickBooks.
Yeah.
It can be tricky. I have a similar situation. If you notify her when that deposit is
Yeah.
being made, you can go ahead and record it.
Oh, I can do a journal entry, record it,
Yeah.
no.
Well, no,
To
is it,
correct our expenses, but my concern is where is the actual cash? Because the money's coming from Gateway Services to reimburse you for it, but is it ever going back to Gateway when you get reimbursed by the insurance?
Yeah, what account is it?
It goes back into the CDD operating account at Pelican Preserve.
Okay, that's my question, so
Right.
it's going back, I'm just never seeing that it goes back so that I can
Right.
correct our
So
expense report.
we can run the bank deposit report, I guess, when we get that, so that we can provide that to you so you can see.
Or just an email to me
Okay.
saying, we've been reimbursed X number of
Yeah.
dollars, so I can do journal entries, back that expense out.
Okay,
Okay.
yep, we'll do that.
Okay.
Another question, I noticed we're over pretty substantially on, street lighting, R&M. Anybody know, Sarah, are you aware of any particular reason for that?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
We're well over budget on street lighting R&M, other.
That's not the other bulbs.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, is that the new bulb?
That's from changing out.
That's from changing out
Yeah.
all the lamps?
Yeah.
Okay, that's, I thought, that, and we had agreed to do that, we had other places in the budget to offset that.
Right.
Okay.
And also, pretty much some of the street lighting, we were over budget on the electric bills too, because we had to increase that budget
By 10%.
quite a bit this year.
Yeah, right.
More than just the 10%.
Really, yeah.
For some reason, we were over budget on that line.
And all the things we see for tree line wall here, there's one under shared operating and maintenance, there's another one, there's about 3 lines. I'm assuming that's our part of the tree line wall, is that right?
Right, the white wall.
Okay.
Yeah, we designated white wall
Right.
versus brown
Brown
wall,
wall.
that's how we
Yeah.
And I'm still not sure I have quite a handle on white wall versus.
Yeah.
One's white, one's brown.
Yeah, but.
It's pretty much where the firehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it kicks into.
Okay. In the entry feature R&M, where we're way over budget, but that's because we did the work on the.
We did the painting and
Painting
and then also
everything
the
on the
trellis,
front.
well, the trellis would have been for this year, so
Right.
yeah, it's from when we painted them, we did all that stuff.
Okay. And when we get down to the waterway management, Bob, the big number, I gather you put into aeration.
It's paid for out of the prior
Prior
year's
year's
surplus.
surplus, right.
We're well under.
Yeah, and pond bank improvements and the stormwater stuff, that's all. coming
It's a
out.
yearly, every.
Yeah.
Yep.
The one other question I had, and it goes to your, Bob, to your report of the CDD meeting.
Yep.
It says Stephen Bloom of Severn Trent presented the first unaudited end of 2016 fiscal year and reported Pelican Reserve to be favorable in the amount of $960,000. Is that includes all the accumulation from prior years, is that right?
I'm not sure how he does it, but, he reported on the status of
Yeah.
all of the various inputs.
Yeah.
And he just stated we were very favorable. He didn't spell it out, at least not to be good.
Oh, okay. You mean-
Yeah.
Stephen's report when he was talking about.
I
the
couldn't
draft.
see it from where I was sitting, but I'm sure that it was in one of the pages, it may not have been up there. So,
I was trusting you to edit that.
Well, no, I just, he's saying 960,000, I assume he must be including prior years, because on this thing, we're 127,000. You don't know what that number is.
yeah, some of it has to be prior years.
I never questioned goodness.
All of our cash
Yeah,
should be prior year excess,
Right.
because
yeah,
an entity like ours, the balance of or the expenses in the budget should be exactly the same every year.
Mhm.
So over and under every year should.
But I thought the only excess funds that went into CD instruments were designated reserve money, or monies that we had designated.
Well, but we
The reason I
won't-
say that is we still have $338,000 in bonds from prior years we haven't spent, even with this year's overage. And we're gonna be tapping into that in 17 for phase 2 aeration.
But if you look at our fixed asset reserves, we have 960,000 in reserves. But if you look at our CDs, we've got 7, 12, 1.8 million. So we've got a lot more in CDs than we do in.
But there's, I think there's separate numbers, right? I think reserves are reserves, CDs, but the other is what I'm talking about, where we have underspent in past years, and over time it has accumulated to that number. But we're now eating into that, which we did this year, to the tune of.
But it's not all ponds. That is not all ponds.
Oh, somebody else has got money too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Don't
money
tell,
that's
don't
just-
tell him about it.
You surprised me, I'll see
He'll
if I
go
can borrow.
after- He'll go after.
Yeah, who can I borrow it from?
How much do you have in excess?
Right now, about 300 and some thousand.
Okay, and in CDs, we've got 1.8 million.
Not totally separate from that.
But is it in that, you said there was a 960,000 number, Nancy?
Yeah, the fixed asset reserve, if you look up at the balance sheet that,
Yeah.
we got a couple weeks ago, we've got 960, 657.
That's the number, that Stephen quoted at the meeting.
Oh, okay.
The nine, that's the fixed
That
asset
is,
reserve.
okay,
Yeah.
that's the fixed
That's-
asset
That's the
reserve.
fixed asset.
And
But we have a lot more in cash sitting there in CDs.
Don't forget back, way back at the very beginning.
2 months.
We had the 2 months overlap, so there's still that money out there, too,
Absolutely.
as far as I know.
So that's probably in that $1.8 million.
it has to be,
Yeah.
yeah, it has to be,
So
so,
that
but
was-
not in our CDs.
No, the CDs are
Stand
exactly
alone.
what Nancy said, that
Yep.
they're the stuff that we have actually transferred to the reserves, to the fixed asset
Yep.
reserve.
Well, except our CDs are more than the fixed
Yes,
asset.
I
reserve.
understand that, but, yeah.
I mean, they're
But
available.
in any event, what we said, excuse me, like, a couple of meetings ago, was that once the budget stuff got settled, we wanted to meet with Stephen and just figure out exactly, from his perspective, what he had, and then we could make decisions about what needed to be done.
Yep, and I do that every year, to make sure I know what my.
Well, you've got your
Ponds
ponds.
Yeah,
are
but I mean,
but we don't-
the principle's the same.
The principle's the same, we just.
But it
we
needs to
just-
be done for the
Whole
whole pot.
pot,
Yeah.
so we know.
Nancy, I can't look that broad.
We don't want you to.
Yeah, and we had talked about.
You could just shut up while we're doing that.
Yeah, we had talked about more of it going into the fixed asset reserves, but I mean, the money's there, whether it's in fixed asset reserves or it's just excess from prior years. As long as it's not in fixed asset reserves, it's always gonna be available, at the end of the year to keep us from raising our budget above. Or, our HOA fees above. So we're better off keeping as much of it free rather than putting a lot of it into fixed asset reserves. Because it gives us more flexibility.
If the fixed asset reserve is right for what we need it
For it.
Yes, we do need to make sure that that's the correct amount. And it's probably been a long time since we've done that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was the value of doing a new study.
Yeah, okay. Are there any more questions on the financials? If not, we'll move on. Nancy, you're next on the reserve study, so that
And.
fits in very well.
Yeah, and I have to tell you that we haven't done, I haven't had a chance to do much of anything
Okay.
with that yet. The only thing I will tell you is that, Stephen truly was having a difficult time, I think, because the district is also, considering doing a reserve study, that Stephen had his staff go back to day one for the DRI for the district and start coming forward. I told him, and I think he got a copy from Diane Richards' study, Jack
Right.
Richards' study, and I said, we don't go back that far, we go back to the beginning. I said, but I'm not sure Jack got the right information and the right dates, but at least that's a starting point, we can figure out from there if he needs help. So I haven't heard from him, but,
So you think that's a first step we need to take before we go on?
well, we need to get on the same page.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and I also have a sense that with, Cal not being replaced yet,
Bill.
Steve, it's all falling on Steve.
Yeah.
He's juggling a lot of balls.
Yeah.
And the other thing we have to do is I have to talk to Jack, but, we also have to figure out, how we would go about finding, organizations that do reserve studies, because the only other one I know of, I believe the district had a problem with it last time.
Yeah, right. There must, there are others around.
Yeah, there have to be.
Yeah.
And people with that expertise
And, 'cause I
should be
think-
apparent to that community.
Because I think we want to do a bid, not that, Jack's welcome to bid,
Yeah.
but I think we ought to just do a bid process.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe we'd be like positive, be totally surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, any other questions, comments on the reserve study? If not, we're gonna move on to association manager report and Securitas. Jason, do you have anything?
Yes.
You have some things to report to us, I think.
Yeah, what I wanted to present, yes.
Just for purposes, of you introduce yourself into the microphone.
Sorry, Jason Olson with Castle Group.
And what I have is, I needed to discuss is the fact that we're going to need to do a mailing in order to get all the key codes and things out to everyone for Dwelling Live, to transition to Dwelling Live, and the cost of that. We have approximately 1,750 homes right now. The cost per door comes out to approximately $1.04, which is about $1,820.
This was a transition cost of Dwelling Live, I guess we didn't know about at the time.
What does it mean? I didn't want to create it, but what's dwelling live?
Dwelling Live is the replacement.
Yeah, that's the upgraded system for the gatehouse from Capture.
I just didn't know the name.
Yeah, and we agreed that we ought to go forward with Dwelling
Absolutely.
Live. It's gonna help at the gate. It'll give us a lot more flexibility, and in fact, we wanna talk to Bob French about some of the things that we can do with that.
So is this a question that we need to?
What is the mailing
first?
include?
Yes.
What does the mailing include? Bob? It has FAQs, it has it also has the individual key codes for the homeowners. And one other page, I believe.
Yeah,
Did
it's
you have
gonna-
something else?
Yeah, it's gonna be the
Yeah,
key
what does that
code.
mean?
What does that mean, individual key codes?
Oh, yeah, I'll be with that.
Please.
All right, there you-
Bob's gonna help me out.
Bob French with Securitas. Okay, one thing is you gotta remember, currently under the capture system, the utilization of the system is not probably where it needs to be. Most, I would say, a good portion of our residents do not use the system. So this is our opportunity to get a majority, a good portion of our residents using the system, which is a great system to be able to utilize. What happens is we're gonna send out a letter with a specific key code for that resident. So that key code is that one-time registration code, kind of like if you're registering Microsoft for the first time. It's your license, your individual license to be able to get in the system. Once you access it the first time, all you'll need is your email address and a password that you will create at that one-time sign-on. So it's a one-step process, very simple, but I think it's gonna help initiate the participation rates in the community. And what that does for us is we have more residents participating in the system, we're gonna get less phone calls at the gatehouse, which means the information will be in the current system, so when a visitor comes up, we're able to expedite the process. Our goal is to kind of free up that gatehouse as far as lines. In addition, try to free up the patrol officer to get back and doing patrol versus sitting at a phone and answering phones for 8 hours. So we're gonna push some of the work back to basically the residents to be able to register guests via an app or smartphone or via any computer anywhere to schedule their guests. So it certainly will help expedite, yes.
If we have a small percentage of the community utilizing the current
Mhm.
system, what makes you think it's going to increase?
I think it's because of education and rollout. When this was originally rolled out, it was rolled out on the WCI, and it wasn't really well initiated, I guess, or well informed, educated and communicated to the residents of that option, or how to get in there, or how to utilize it. So we're gonna go out there again, and we're gonna reinstitute the policy, the website, the logon, which will allow much more residents to be informed, new residents or residents that have never known about it or never used it in the past.
Well, I would like to think that I am probably more informed on those things than any resident, and I've never done anything but call the house for gas or work or whatever.
Exactly.
I didn't know I could do anything. about it.
Exactly,
And I
right.
go online all the time.
I've never been online.
Well,
Is this one a little more user-friendly than the old one?
Yes, yes.
Because ours worked for a while, and then it wouldn't let us go in anymore. It just-
Much more user-friendly. And the best part is, like I said, if you use phone apps, it's got a nice app, no charge to you, easy peasy to use. It'll be much better.
it concerns me that I don't think the problem has been that people haven't been told. Because Castle has sent the whole thing out
Numerous times.
umpty times to people, and people just aren't paying any attention. And I'm not sure if you do a mailing, yeah, if you do a mailing, you're going to get much more participation. I mean, Sarah, how many times have emailed that out.
Every one of her emails.
Yeah, we send it quite a bit, and we were even piggybacking the new resident orientation with the capture orientation, so, but the only people that came to that or stayed for that were the new residents that we just did the orientation for, and I think that we do see a lot of them using it. The problem is that we were educating far after it had gone into effect, and so I don't think that people felt there was a need because they already had a process they were using. I think we have an opportunity potentially to say, this is the new process and we need for you to get on board. And then maybe that will change the mindset along with the fact of the program. I mean, there's no way to tell if people are gonna do it, but I can say that when we switched websites to the Grid website, and we had to do a similar thing where we sent out an email and said you have to go in and verify for the first time, we saw quite a jump and increase of people that were accessing the website now and creating a login versus what they had before, what we had before.
I think the only way you're going to get the participation that you're looking for is to say that as of a date certain, residents will no longer be able to phone.
Shut off the phones.
Seriously.
Well.
You
and
could
one
do
of the
that.
tenants, and I never thought it would work.
Yeah.
Once they made it, had to do all the reservations online, people had to learn, because you couldn't do it by phone.
Yeah.
So it will work, I agree with that.
We have communities that have done that, so that's an
Did you
option.
say, though, you would plan to send a letter out or an email?
A letter.
Why not an email?
You know what, though, I think people will read the letter. I mean, all of us get
Tons of
50,
emails.
60 emails a day, and there are times that you're just going over the important ones first. I'd say the letter, I think, is gonna increase
I
participation.
agree.
A lot of people are gonna set that letter aside and say, oh,
I don't-
I'll do that later. And
Well,
then-
they'll still have the letter.
Yeah.
You lose the email as you go through 50.
Yeah.
But 90 days or 120 days after the system's implemented, then if we start saying at the shack, oh, I'm afraid you gotta do it online. then
I don't even think that
things
far
are-
out.
Well,
I
some
think
period of
it's gotta be
time.
fairly quickly. Here's your letter, you gotta start it now, because if it's 90 days out, people, I can do
Well,
it
that's-
later.
okay, I agree.
It's gotta be a short
soon.
window.
Yeah. short
Or the
window.
other alternative is record who calls up to do it.
Mhm.
Make a special hit to them.
But you will
Yeah.
find people that just do not use a smartphone or just aren't gonna
That's
have
right.
a computer on every morning.
That's
We're
right.
Age 55.
And we have one neighbor in our community that doesn't do anything electronically.
Yeah,
Nothing.
yeah.
It's more than one, but you're right. There are some.
Yeah.
Right. So you are gonna have
But we're
people
on the
that are
right
still
track.
gonna call.
Yeah.
Well, there was a seed of an idea here, let's get the names of the people who call and go back at them.
Yeah.
Rather
Maybe
than-
special training or whatever, just give me some small number. Yeah, give them
Yeah.
special training or offer them.
Yeah, yeah.
And
say,
then if we can,
For smartphones.
yeah, and then if we can get it down to just that handful of people who, like your neighbor, don't use computers, maybe you'll have 25 or 30 people who always call.
Yeah.
They'll be
But
the
that's
exceptions,
a lot
not the
better.
rule.
Yeah.
They'll be the exception.
Would it be possible then, Bob, to have the guards record the names?
Yeah, absolutely. We keep a log now, so we'll just log it and then we'll go back and try to re-educate them, or as we're speaking with them, see what we can do to educate them.
Yeah.
But we do need to move a lot of that work over to the system to make it more efficient for the lines, as well as the patrol, because the patrol sits in the guardhouse, unfortunately, too many
I
hours.
didn't know that was happening. That should not be happening. when
Yeah.
the Patrol sits in
Yep,
I agree.
the guardhouse.
it's a lot
And
of
we might be able to
calls.
solicit some volunteers who would take it upon themselves to take that list each month and then offer the training to the resident. Did you know you could do this? Rather than make it into burden.
You could be the first one trained.
Well, there are people that would volunteer to help us.
Well,
Safety and security people.
And you can send out an invitation to this 20 or 30 people and say, we're gonna have a training session of using the system.
Well, I have a question.
Mhm.
We already approved a budget to implement this new system.
Mhm.
Was this process of getting the PIN numbers to the owners not included in that, your proposal?
No, what we proposed was the hardware change of the control panel. But the number I gave you on the control panel, I don't remember, was 2,500, I don't remember the number, 2,000. 1,600. We may be able to get that a little bit lower because we can get the panel less expensive, plus the integrated can install for less than what we initially, so I may be able to do it for like $600 and then reallocate the remainder of those dollars to the mailing.
But
Um,
that's not, how much did you say the
It
mailing
was
was?
about
1,800, correct.
So there would be some.
Why is it $1 something a house? A postage stamp is 50 cents.
Yeah, the postage is, you have the postage, the cost of the envelope, and the cost of photocopying the 3 inserts.
I've got 1,700 envelopes I'll donate to you guys.
We can do the printing here.
Well, every letter has to be individual because it's gonna have
Correct.
a separate
That's right.
code.
Correct.
That's right.
I'm having a hard time with allocating more money to this that we've already allocated a substantial amount for. I get it, but I think this process should have been, and I guess we're talking about now, should have been thought out before we went through that whole thing. Talking about how much it was gonna cost. to
Well,
do
some communities don't send the letters out. Some communities, because participation levels are relatively low, they have it on an Excel spreadsheet and they get those phone calls into the association office and then they deploy them the code via phone, or they'll send an email out, Now, we'll give you a spreadsheet with all the email addresses on it, and if we can, send it via email, that would work too, but that was gonna need some coordinating with how to send.
That's still a lot of legwork.
That's a lot of legwork.
That's a lot of legwork,
It's a lot
because
of
each
work.
one has their own
I
code.
Well, if we could take it to the president's meeting and give each president his particular packet. and let him-
Bingo, there you go.
Save
There's a
couple
process
$1,000
that's
a month.
streamlined.
I'm into that.
So we could print the hard copy letters, but then just give it to each neighborhood president to distribute.
Or
to
give them the
people.
Excel sheet with the individual homeowners,
give them a
and they can call and get their pin.
Well,
Well,
whatever's cheap.
except that it seems to me that in the letter, we have an opportunity to encourage people
To use it.
and to explain to them what it is that you're not gonna get if somebody's just handing the number. And we can tell them, we're gonna be discussing next thing on this discussion with Bob has to do with some of the features we may wanna have, and we could even put that in the letter.
Why can't that stuff go in the newsletter?
Because people won't
You don't read it?
the newsletter.
Or PPAC members don't read the newsletter?
No, I'm not saying that PPAC members don't read it, I'm saying people don't read the newsletter.
In total. Don't read parts of
They
it.
read parts of it, some don't read it at all. I mean, that's the reality of the situation.
I like your idea for presidents.
No, it could be a number of resources. that
It can
are-
still, it can still be
Residents
a hard
alliance,
copy
but-
letter to hand.
It can still be a hard copy.
But then it's a
letter.
bite
That's what I'm
size-
saying.
it's a bite-sized
I'm saying-
chunk, but
I'm saying a hard copy
Yeah.
that the presidents give to each person in their community.
Yeah.
We can get it
President-
printed over here a lot cheaper than we can going out.
Yes, we can.
How do you expect the president, I mean, might be a lot to ask for somebody that has 200 homes, and you're not supposed to go and leave anything in people's mailbox, or are they knocking on everyone's doors? I mean, we're kind of committing presidents to doing something that they may not be
We
willing
have
to
a
do.
president that's got 200 homes.
Yes.
Karina's
Yeah.
193.
Well, we won't include that.
Matarita two's 174, and Matarita's 166. I mean, that's a lot of pressure to put on a.
But the presidents have been writing to people, the new one I know of, the old ones have most of their email addresses, they can send an email out. We've got a new security system, I've got a letter to give to you, or whatever, I think there's gotta be an easier way. You know, $1,000 is $1,000, if we can put that $1,000 for something really good,
Well, I don't think there's an easier way, what you're looking for is a cheaper way.
Cheaper.
Because I think his way is about as easy.
I would say cost effective, but.
Cost effective.
I think the best approach, though, is just an individual letter with it's coming through the mail. People are going to take it more at heart than just an email, or the president's passing out something.
I think-
They get 1,000 of those.
We're obviously not gonna, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
resolve this. Why don't you take it under advisement and
Well,
let's try.
can I offer a suggestion? And
We
I
would
think
love
we,
that.
I don't like spending the money, but I think we ought to do the mailing. You have a lot of absentee owners that
True.
are renting out their property or whatever, and it's up to them to get to their users what they need to be doing. And the presidents aren't gonna be able to get to those people particularly.
Good point.
Do I hear a motion to do an individual mailing as recommended by
I'll
our property manager?
also-
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor of an individual mail?
Aye.
Four. Ron, you too? Yeah. All opposed?
Aye.
5-2, the motion passes, we will do it. I think at the level of $1,800, is that right?
Yeah, what I came up with was 1820, yes.
1820, we can approve that.
Well, we can take it to the supervisors, and just say there's local. I'm sure we
For
can.
1820?
For $1,800, we gotta go to the supervisors.
We don't have any authority to spend anything, it's not budgeted.
This is in our budget.
No, it's
It's
not.
not, it's not.
It's not. And it's not, hopefully it won't be 1,800, at the end of the day, it'll be
Yeah,
something less.
let me look at, what I'll do, Lou, let me revisit that cost for the hardware and see how low I can get that and see if we can make up the difference and contribute something to that, which I think we can do that.
Maybe we have a figure over here that gets mail cheaper. Here.
Yeah, does it not qualify for bulk mailing?
I mean, the cost of postage is what it is, and then the preparation for 1,750
Yeah.
homes that's the cost that we do. I mean, I'm sure if you wanted to find somebody else, but then we would have to provide a list of every resident and the address, and then coordinate that with them as well. But I mean, I think you're talking about pennies on the dollar at that point.
No.
Move on.
It is not worth the effort.
And we can get with Bob to see if we can get more information in it with less paper potentially too, or at least, discuss the verbiage of what's gonna go in the letter so that
We can cut a page
we
or
have a
whatever.
clear,
Right.
yeah, or front back it, I mean, that's
We
not-
could do that too, front, back it, cut a page.
I would like a motion that we recommend to the board of supervisors that we spend,
Not to exceed $2,000.
not to exceed $2,000 on doing this mailing. And Bob, you're gonna see what you can offset that.
Yes.
for us. Do I hear that?
I'll motion.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
What was the name of this new system?
Dwelling live.
Dwelling Live?
Dwelling live.
Okay. I think, it seems to me that we probably want to take a look at what the letter says,
Mhm.
so that we can, you know,
Yeah, you have a letter of the, I have the standard letter because they give them to me, Dwelling Live gives them to me. They're all mail merged and so forth. So it's a standard letter there, but we typically would like to put a letter on top of the letter, kind of from the community, explaining what this is all about. And then usually I have a frequently asked questions page, which will kind of give you a question and here's an answer. So it addresses some of the concerns or issues. So I got the frequently asked questions in the standard letter. And then the community would have to, and I have some samples of some other communities that have used letters.
Jason, would you send those, would you?
I'll send the dwelling.
Send those to, I guess, to Diane, and she can distribute it to the members, so we can all look at it and decide what we can do.
I'll send them to you again, in case
Um,
letters.
Okay, Bob, while we're on the subject,
Mhm.
we had talked at the last meeting about.
No, can I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure. Go ahead, Ron.
This call-in system worked great for about the first half hour.
Yeah,
Now I'm seeing, you're good for like 2 or 3 seconds, and it's blanked out for 2 or 3 seconds.
oh,
I'm gonna hang up and call back in and see if it gets back to working properly, all right?
Okay.
I'll be off for about 30 seconds.
okay. Pick it up.
We just leave it on, I think we should go in there.
We talked at the last meeting about some of the potential features in the system that could possibly be of interest to us. The one that I must admit most intrigues me is our ability to issue, what do we call them, we put them on cars, stickers?
Barcodes?
Barcodes on the cars that provide limited hours within the community. Bob, I guess my first question on that one would be, can you do that on an individual basis, or do there have to be classes of barcodes?
No, technically with a barcode, you can limit the times to an individual barcode.
Okay.
You can limit the times.
And
Yes,
that prevents the gate going up.
that's correct.
But the people who have the barcodes, if they come in at the times they're allowed, they
Yep.
could go to the residence gate, and the gate would go up, they don't have to go through the guardhouse.
That's correct, for a barcode, correct.
How are we willing to give barcodes to that doesn't live here?
Well,
Pool maintenance guys.
I was gonna say,
Housekeeping.
I was just gonna say, Nancy, that's the thing, if we can limit how long they can be here, it would really help at the gate.
Because don't they can get paper ones that they can use at the scanner that's in the guard lane, where they just scan and go straight in.
That's-
Without having to stop, without having a barcode on their car.
Yeah, there's two ways to do it. You can actually take a barcode on a pass, and you can classify that group, let's say vendors, and vendors print a barcode out, and the vendor can only get in the community between the hours of 7 and 5, for example, Monday through Saturday. We still will need to scan that, but yes, it could work in the same manner.
It speeds it up, but it doesn't eliminate it.
Exactly right.
Whereas if it's on the door, you eliminate the guard entirely.
But now you're making the residence line longer, and that's my concern, is that we're gonna have other people coming in through our lane now, and sometimes now I'm seeing 5, 6, 7 cars lined up in the resident lane already. If we give the barcodes, that means it's just gonna get longer.
I'll bet you half of our residents that know it don't use the trap gate. They come straight through the guard check and they're
I
open much
can
quicker.
accept that.
Yeah.
That line
Most
longer.
of the
That's
time there's a
really
line
nice.
there now.
No, that's what I'm saying. This
Yeah.
way, that line would not be as long for the guard. It'd be faster.
Well, but there are still times when the guard gate the line is long.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This would get, in total, it should
Yeah.
speed the process, which is nothing but good.
I'm not sure that I wanna have vendors
With barcodes.
with barcodes.
Stickers, yeah. I'd rather them have the paper barcode that they can scan.
And you scan it, which is pretty quick.
Yeah,
It's
it's
pretty quick.
scan it, boom, it's it,
will-
and it enters them
they'll
in.
probably get through it quicker rather than having a trap gate. If all
Yeah,
you have
well,
to
that's
do-
true. That's- yeah.
All you have to do is scan it.
That's true.
And the gate opens.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I see no problem
It's a
with
little
the paper
portable, it's a little
barcode.
scanner on an arm on the left-hand side when you pull up to the guard check, that you
Yeah.
can just scan right there.
We could make the resident thing shorter by eliminating the truck.
Uh-oh.
Don't even go there.
Well, the steering work is looking at whether that makes sense. That's part of what they're charging.
Okay.
So, as I'm hearing we're willing to give people access.
Limited access.
Limited access. The problem with giving them a barcode for their car is that we're afraid that will clog up the residence gate. Is that what I'm hearing? It'll clog up the residence gate. But the principle of the thing is we are still allowing them to come on the property without actually reporting into the guard and having their, now, would we still take, if they went through that line, Bob, would we still take a picture of their license plates?
Yeah, they would still be recorded on the camera. We
Yeah.
wouldn't actually key it in, though,
No,
no,
right.
no. That's
No,
right.
but they
Now,
would-
when you scan that though, does
Mhm.
it go into the computer?
Yes.
Who it is?
Yes.
So they have that
Yes.
information, it's being scanned.
Yeah, the one thing we have to make a decision on, from an access control perspective, when they show that pass, we scan it, we're gonna require them to show their driver's license to ensure it matches up with the actual pass itself. That's, that's gonna be something we have to decide on.
That'll slow it down.
Yeah, now, of course, if it says XYZ contractor and it's XYZ contractor, yeah, let them on in.
So if they come up to the gate and they use that scanner there, when I've seen them use it before, the gate just automatically.
That's
goes
correct,
up.
in that case, that's
Yeah,
correct.
So they're not, if they've already got the pass,
But it goes into the computer.
That means you're not checking.
That's correct.
right, they're not,
I'm okay with it.
they're only checking the driver's license when they issue the pass.
That's correct.
Yeah, and the other thing for whether to put a barcode or not on a vehicle is a lot of the vendors, now the cleaning staff is something different, but a lot of the vendors don't necessarily always grab the same truck or car when they
That's
go
true.
out, they grab different vehicles.
Yeah, I have communities that do that, and if you have that situation, they have to register all their vehicles through an office. For example, they have to fill an application out, they have to submit it to the office verifies that they're a legitimate company, they have insurance, have a business license, and then they issue the barcodes to X number of vehicles. This community's,
Those barcodes, 'cause there's
no,
no cost to that.
they have the vendors pay for them. The vendors literally pay for them. They charge them, I have one community that charges $50 per barcode per vehicle per year. That's how they do it. And they verify all the vendors and actually pay for it.
That'll pay for a lot of it.
And then the other issue is, how do you gotta get the residents to do this? I mean,
Yes.
it's one thing to say this is what we wanna do, but if the residents still wanna just give their cleaning person a 6-month pass, it's kinda hard to stop them from doing that.
Or put it on the business.
That's what they do, they put them in the guest
That's what
list.
it is. Yeah.
So we have to somehow communicate the importance of not having vendors having free access 24/7 to the community. Is that a deal?
Now, in these communities, they actually control all the vendors, meaning that if they come in multiple times, they have to get a barcode. They have no choice in these other communities.
No.
If they come in infrequently here and there, they don't require it.
How do they handle, let's say, maids or home health care people?
If they're coming in for maid service, a cleaning service, and they're in every week, and they haven't drilled down necessarily to those independent individuals, so they do just give them a pass at this juncture, but they hitting all the big pool vendors and the home watch people and landscapers and pest control, and all those services are being narrowed down. And they go back through their system, and they look at all the vendors they did issue a pass to, and they're trying to narrow that down further. They started out with all the big ones first, and then they're now down to like home cleaning services and so forth.
And then once again, that barcode can either be affixed to the car or it can be the.
Well, yeah, barcode could go on the car like you currently have for a resident, or it'd have to be a pass with a barcode on it, correct? Yeah.
So where are we?
Yeah, what is the sense of the people on the committee? Is this something we wanna start doing?
Oh, look, I think it'd be very good to communicate with people that they have the ability to have limited access now for their contractors and such.
Can I do a what if? What if we roll this out and 90 to 120 days later, we find that 5% of the community is using it? Do we have
Well,
option?
he has data
cost
from
to
other
us.
communities as to
Mhm.
how many people are using it, right?
Yeah, we can also accumulate data as far as what's happening in our own community, like how many vendors are actually getting a pass. You know, how many vendors are coming into the community. We can sort that
How
out.
many residents are using the system?
Well, we got that too, but we know that's a small number, but yeah. See, I think the key is that we can take this in steps, is first of all, I think utilization of the system is a good start. Once we get people on the system, we can actually see a list of all the vendors in alphabetical order that have been permitted on someone's permanent guest list or a one-time guest into the community at a given time. So we can look at every vendor that's been permitted in the community. Then we can see how frequently it is or what's most common, kind of get some trends, I guess.
Can this
Yeah,
all
that
be
makes sense.
rolled out at the same time so that our letter we're sending out can also include this at the same time?
You could, but I mean, we need to make sure we understand what we want to do, what we're doing, yeah.
Yeah, I think what Bob is suggesting is we need to get some data before we offer that. Let's say you offered, you know, somebody can call in and get their maid in on every Wednesday. What would be the procedure for getting a pass for doing that?
They would go ahead and they'd call ahead, say, I have my maid coming in on Wednesday. They'd come through, we register the maid as a vendor
Okay.
and check their driver's license, issue a pass, and let them in. So they're just considered a vendor at that point.
How would it
Um,
work with the new system, if we knew they were coming every week on Wednesday?
Well, they would get a permanent, a longer
Start with the
pass.
resident, what the resident has to do to get that.
Well, the resident would just need to put them in their profile as permanent,
Okay.
as a vendor. Now, you're talking about a barcode or a pass? Two different things.
Well, we
A
can decide whether we
barcoded,
want
a
to go
barcoded paper one, a barcoded paper one, that they would.
A pass, okay. They would just put them on the permanent guest list, and we'd issue a pass for 6 months. They'd come through and scan it every time they come through. And
You could still limit them to.
you can. You have to take, but remember, if you do it that way, you have to limit the type. So for example, if I put vendors on a paper pass, I'm gonna put the hours between 7 and 7 and 5, for example, Monday through Saturday, and other days it won't work. We can do that by type. But then we can also have to create another category for vendors after hours, because you have vendors after hours. Air conditioner breaks down, you have one-offs.
Plumbing emergency.
Yeah, different situations.
But wouldn't I, like if I had a plumbing emergency?
It'd be a one-time.
I would go into the system and say I have XYZ
That's
company
right.
coming in. I wouldn't wanna give them a pass because they're gonna be there one time.
You give them a one-day pass, right?
So
They'd
you
get
still
one day.
classify them one time, every other week, every month, permanent?
Yeah, typically we do ours one day, one time. They only in for one time, that's it. Pass expires at midnight. Then you have a vendor, a regular vendor is gonna be up to 6 months. So for the pool service, that comes in every single week for 6
Pool
months.
guys weekly, the pest control's monthly.
May-
Yeah.
My suggestion would be, since this is there are a lot of variations here, very complicated. My suggestion would be, Ron, are you still with us?
Yep, I'm here.
My suggestion would be that Ron has been the guy who's been working with Bob and Sarah and now Jason on issues at the.
Sorry, I'm not here anymore.
We'll send you the written note.
Right.
Uh,
Send me a letter.
that if you would work with Jason and Bob to come up with a proposal for the utilization of this kind of, these kinds of passes, what would make sense so that the committee could look at that, because we're gonna be sitting here for hours, trying to slog through this thing as a committee, and I don't think that's gonna work.
Including a recommendation on passes versus barcodes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so,
The different barcodes, it's on the way.
Can one or two of us
Pass it.
play with the system in the interim?
Has everybody watched the YouTube video that shows you how to use it?
I gotta,
Come on.
I'm so sorry,
You
did
really
we get
expecting a
something on
positive
that?
answer?
Bob will send it.
I'll,
Bob
I'll,
will
s-
send it.
I'll send it out to everybody. It's
Sure, I'll
there's a,
let Ron do
there's a
that.
video gives you a little more perspective on Dwelling Live.
Jan, would you like to work with Ron on this?
Yeah.
Okay, so
On the
Jan
new
and
system,
Ron
is
will
he
work
allowed
with
to?
Jason?
Yes.
Allowed to do that?
Jason's gonna get.
Oh, no, you can't.
You're not
You
allowed.
can't, not allowed to do it.
I'm not allowed to do
Two
it?
people.
You can't do
That was me.
it.
Oh, what I,
Volunteer your husband.
thank you, Ron, I don't, he's dead. I'll
Care,
volunteer
it's like
him.
Chicago, pick him up. Let him go.
So maybe we can go there.
What I suggested to Phil was, is there a chance that one or two of us, except Ron, can play with this system and feel for it? Other than just, I mean, in addition to watching the video?
Yeah.
It might give us a better sense.
I have a demo site I can let you go into if you want to use it. It's completely open, meaning it has all the,
No, yeah, I would encourage you, if Bob has a demo place, encourage you to go into that, and then you can report.
yeah, then
To Ron.
that's on
Your
the,
findings, no, to the committee.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
and also
So
Ron-
letters, YouTube.
Ron, at the same time, Ron will be working with Jason and Bob to come up with a proposal with regard to the issue of these passes.
Okay.
But seriously, Jan, if you have something you want to share, it's gotta go through Diane,
Yeah.
to all of us. We can't communicate with any of this business one-on-one, because it's like judgments,
Really?
really.
But if you send it to
That
Lawrence, you
is
need
so
to send it
adverse.
out to all of us.
But she'll give it to everyone.
Okay,
You just send it to her and say, please share with feedback.
okay.
Yeah.
I'd kind of like to
Okay.
get my information, if you could send
Oh,
me that.
okay.
I will.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jan.
Can you send us the link to the YouTube?
Yeah, we're gonna send the letters out, the YouTube link, and we'll go from there, yeah.
So I think at this point, we've got two people kind of working on the issue of the system. Jane's gonna come back with her comments to.
On the demo site.
On the demo site and back through Diane. Ron, in turn, will be working with Jason and Bob to come up with some kind of proposal with regard to the use of passes and barcodes, if that's appropriate. Come back to the committee with recommendations in that regard. Another issue, Bob, that's come up, and I'd like Jan to really talk about it, and I think
Sent an email, yes, you did.
Yeah, I sent you.
I got
an
Jan's email too.
Jan, do you want
So-
to just explain very briefly to me?
Yeah, there's lots of us that walk dogs, and in the process, we see the patrol cars, the roving patrol cars go through the neighborhood. And a number of people, and not a small number, a fairly large number, had made comments like, wow, they're just racing to push that button. And I've taken very good notice the past couple of weeks, when I can get out.
Sure.
That they're not even looking at the houses. They're focused straight ahead, they push the button, and they go right back. So I'm concerned that we implemented a system making them accountable for being in certain neighborhoods at certain times. But I wonder if the schedule is so tight that it's defeating the purpose of securing our homes and looking for things that could potentially be wrong because the schedule is so
Mhm,
tight.
mhm. Well, let me clarify, we do not currently have a schedule on that system, meaning that the only time we're scheduled right now to do scheduled checks is on the town center and the sales office. The communities are not on a schedule, meaning that they are to go through the communities and just hit it to verify they were in the community, but they're not in a particular time frame. It's a very random, and they're to hit the communities as often as they can in the proper manner. So obviously, that was not the reason why they weren't doing it. So I went back to my folks and I said, let's go back over what the objective is. The objective is not to hit buttons.
Right.
The objective is just to confirm you were there in the neighborhood, that so we have confirmation. If we have an investigation, for example, if we have something happen in a home, we can go back to where the rover was at those times. But that's assuming that they're going through the community at or within 15 miles an hour with the window down typically. That's the proper way. The window is down because they're listening, using their senses, smell, listening, sight, so forth. And they're to be roving through a opportunity, looking for everything from any suspicious activity between homes, an irrigation problem, garage door open, anything out of the ordinary as they go through a community slowly. And they're to complete every community in the same manner and then check the point when they're there, obviously. That's the requirement. So I've spoke to 2 individual patrol officers in my office since that email, going over what my expectations are of the community. I had 2 more to do, the overnight folks. I did the second shift because I suspect that's one of the places it was coming from. I don't know for sure. The first and second shift were my concern. The third shift, obviously, I need to cover that as well. But there's no reason to race. We don't have any time frames.
Right.
We need to cover the communities thoroughly and in detail, one by one.
Before we implemented the system, the guards used to stop and check with us. How's everything going?
Mhm.
Da-da-da-da. They would catch garage doors open at
Mhm.
10:30 at night.
Sure.
Granted, there are not a lot of people out at 10:30 at night, but sometimes I'm working late and I'll walk the dog,
Mhm.
and I've knocked on 4 neighbors' doors that the garage door was wide open.
Mhm.
And in one case, the inside garage door to the house was also open.
Mhm.
It was opened at 7 PM by a workman and never closed, and she never checked on it. So they're not catching things anymore. So I am concerned
Mhm.
that it's defeating the purpose and it's compromising the actual true security of our communities.
Yeah,
So-
it's not meant to do that.
I know it's
the
not.
opposite, is to add value to it and verification and accountability.
Mhm.
So we need to get back to, and how I can tell by opening garage doors is make sure they're doing an incident report on every open garage door. Then when you ask me that question, I can say in the month of December, we had 25 or 300 open garage doors. And I'll have that data to do that. But if they are using it correctly, we can answer that issue, or address that issue.
Now, when you say an open garage door, if somebody's working outside,
No.
okay, so you're.
Typically at night.
or something.
10:30 at night.
You have the dark. Folks forget. I mean, I've done it. You leave the garage door open, you forget.
Well, and there was another family that left for a day or two and forgot to close their
That will
garage
happen.
door, and it was open for a couple of days.
Mhm.
And I finally just went up and pushed the button and shut it.
I've done that before.
But why didn't the security guards catch that?
That's something we have to look into. They have to catch, I'll make sure they record every open garage door so we can see how many open garage doors we have a given month. So there's certain numbers that we'll be able to say we have 20, or we have, there's more than 20. It's probably a couple hundred per month. If you take a couple hundred divided by 30 days, it's really not that many, but it's out there. So we have in other communities, we record them, and we watch them month after month, we look at those numbers. And they're about the same every month. They shouldn't increase or really decrease. So that will tell you if they're doing what they need to be doing. If we have, for example, we record 150 garage doors open in a given month, we go the next month, we have 30, we're not doing something. We're not doing something. It's averages, the average will come out amongst the community at a specific number, whatever that number will be. And I can tell you it's more than 20, it's probably less than a couple hundred, but it's not a low number. So I need to really go back and drill down on the patrol folks. That means that they stop at every stop sign, that means they go the speed limit at all times, that means they abide by all the rules. We have to set the example. We can't be, we talked about this before in previous meetings, we have to do that. So if that means that I re-educate them in a meeting together as a group from me, then that's what I need to do, or show them how to do it. I know how to do a patrol, I'll sit in the car and we'll go through a patrol and show them the proper way. It's not that difficult.
I think they know how to do it. They were doing it before we put the button system in,
Yeah.
so I just don't know. So thank you.
Just a general comment. I think that, what Bob is doing and what he tries to do at all times is the whole gate, the whole security system is got some complicated issues in it, and there's a lot of discipline that's needed for both the roving patrol and the guards at the gate. We discussed this at the president's meeting a little bit this morning, and what we need is, if people are seeing things that are being done, they should be reported to Jason, and Jason and Bob will follow up on it. So
Yep.
if we see things, and it's never gonna be perfect, but we need to catch things that are happening to help just bring the thing up, the standards up as we move along. So I would encourage everybody, we encouraged all the presidents this morning to make reports to Jason of things that were occurring that were kind of out of line, that weren't the way we think they should be done, and Bob will be following up on this. So.
Can I ask one last question? So the purpose of those buttons
Mhm.
is not so you know where they're at so much, it's if you have to go back later and see, okay, an incident happened, we wanna know where they're at. Cause could they feel like this button system is like monitoring them?
Yeah, we
Maybe
do.
there's some resentment there on their part that,
Well-
being treated like a child, I have to push a button every single neighborhood I go in to prove I did my job.
Well, we do go back and look at, are they doing the checkpoints? Because if they're going through, first of all, they have to go through the community to get to the checkpoint. So they have to go through a community to do half their job anyway. So we do look at it. If they had no checkpoints, how do we know they went through the community? So it's kind of it's twofold.
It's no different than what we do in industry.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but I'm just wondering if she says it would change when those buttons went in, that maybe there's a little resentment on their part that they're being treated like children.
Well, I wanted to remind them, because they may have thought that they had so many they had to hit, or they had a particular schedule, so I re-communicated the fact that we're not timing you,
Right.
and it's not how many do I get in a night, it's that we do the job and just give yourself credit for doing the job. If you go through the community, give yourself credit and hit the button. That's all I'm asking for.
So I applaud the effort. Would you mind if they only push the button once in their shift in the community? There was like a 3-hour interval or 4-hour interval? Does that make a difference?
Well, if they're in the community only one time, that's fine, but yeah, I need them to hit it every time they go in the community, because I need to know where that vehicle is. We, as a community, need to have accountability to where our people are and what they're doing. And the best thing is that system to do that, unless I'm in the car with them. But people will be people, and we have to hold them accountable. So we review the process. Number one, do we have the right people? Are we communicating the expectation? Are we training them? And we hold them accountable. And if we do all those things right, they'll do it. If we're missing one of those steps, then we're gonna have a problem. So I gotta go back and look at, do I have the right people? Am I communicating the expectation? Are they properly trained? Do they know how to do it? And at the same time, we hold them accountable. We have to hold them accountable, because my experience has been in this business that if you don't hold them accountable, they're not gonna do it. Just like we all been there, and we all can experience that. So,
One last comment, totally off any of that, occasionally, and more frequently than I'd like to say, there's cars parked in the exit lane next to the shack.
yes, that's a no-no. Yes, that's a no-no.
Or, yes.
Yeah. And I think we improved on that significantly,
It's
but,
definitely improved.
but it's still, I noticed that I was coming through more recently and I saw it was parked there.
And the reason that I bring it up is when there's 4 or 5 of our community members driving to leave, an awful lot of us think we have to stop and wait for the gate to go up in one car at a time to leave. But you can't, you can all just go. But when I see a backup, I know what's going on, and then I'll use the guard check to
Right.
get out quick.
Sure.
You can get out through the guard check lane too?
Absolutely.
Cool.
It's faster.
Very cool.
If there's no car parked there.
There's no patrol car there, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, in any event, we will keep working with Securitas, to make sure.
Overall,
that
they're doing a great job.
Security, yes, I think things are greatly improved and are getting better all the time, so Bob, thank you for that.
We'll keep working on it. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to report?
No, that was all I had. Just so you all know, is that we will be putting on an extra patrol at the back construction gate temporarily. I don't know how long it's going to go on for, but WCI was really concerned about the vandalism to the guard shack back there. So they'll be putting on some temporary roving patrol in the back of the community.
Vandalism to the guard check?
Yeah, they had went ahead and
It's like
created.
third or fourth time, right?
Yeah, third or fourth time. So WCI is putting on some additional.
Well, the construction road that goes out to Gateway, I mean, there's no barrier or anything.
There's nothing back there. That's why they want a
I mean,
patrol back
anybody-
there.
I mean, anybody driving down Gateway Boulevard.
Exactly
has
right.
Total access.
You're absolutely right.
I
To
thought we
your
were gonna put,
construction and the homes.
I thought we were gonna put a gate up there, Sarah, no?
We can't do anything, WCI owns it.
It's WCI's
Yeah.
property.
Yeah.
There is a gate here, so that the people coming in on that access road can't come into us,
Okay.
but they can
Because there
go
wasn't.
into the
Construction.
construction.
Ah.
Because I was out there reviewing one afternoon, and the guard locked me in.
Yeah.
I had to open it up, let me back out.
That's too bad.
So you're the one.
You didn't tell them who you were though, did you?
So we'll have additional roving patrols back there. I don't know how long they'll have it for, but they're obviously concerned that they don't want any vandalism to any of the homes, which hasn't happened, but they just want to make sure it's safe and
Are
sorry.
they paying for that?
Yes, yep, yep. So,
I'll just drive for it, pay for it now.
there you go. Maybe we can negotiate something.
Okay. Bob,
Very good.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jason, do you have anything else to report?
No, that's all I have.
The only thing I have to say is that, those of you who are not aware, Sarah has gotten a promotion, and her new title is
Regional Director.
Regional Director. And,
More work.
well deserved.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
She, fortunately, she will still be
yes.
on site, working with us, helping Jason out, and so we will still have the benefit of her fine services.
So we can still use it.
Yeah, right. Okay, moving right along. The CPD systems facility. John?
Update.
Yeah.
Actually, on 11/8, Master Association with Sarah, David Caldwell, and WCI's legal counsel, Chris Davies, made a few changes to the agreement. I did hear from Chris Davies. He did send an email to Tony saying that he hoped to have all these changes back to Tony by 11/9, but that really didn't happen. Sarah does have a recap of some of the changes, and she can give us an update, but they hope to have everything done by Thanksgiving. That is our goal.
Do you want to hear?
Yeah, yeah.
I think that the biggest concern that WCI had was really in regards to there's no language in the current agreement about should the CDD at some point want to cancel the agreement, what does that mean for the contracts that are in place? Because although they're approved by the CDD, the master association signs off on them. So they're technically in Pelican Preserve's name. So if the CDD stopped funding for that, for whatever reason, we're in a contract now as a master association with no funding for those contracts. So they wanted some verbiage in there that basically said if the CDD terminates, then they are responsible for the contracts that are service CDD assets. So that's what kicked it back, which I can understand.
And that's pretty cool. And they got the language in there?
So that's what they're working on, getting the language in there, and I think they're gonna add an exhibit of what some of those contracts are, and the monthly costs, and make sure that those are kind of pre-funded every month, so that we're not waiting on deficit funding for those regular services as well. So that were the only two big pieces they wanted to make sure were properly stated in the contract, or the agreement. So I think Chris Davies has the information from us, from our office as of today, with those monthly services, and we'll be adding that, so hopefully you'll have something by end of day today or tomorrow.
How is it working now? Is it being deficit funded by?
Yeah, somewhere along the line, we got off track. The original agreement did say that every, like, first of the month, they're supposed to dump some money into the operating funds and then balance it out at the end of the month based off of, you know, the invoices that come through. That hasn't been happening. I don't know if it ever was. When I took over, what was happening was we were paying the bills and then asking for the money back, even for regular contracted services. So we are always holding checks for sometimes 60 to 90 days for our vendors, which is not good business. So we're going back to saying, look, on an average, we're spending contracted services $50,000. On the first of every month, $50,000 should be in the operating account, ready to go. And then anything we spend outside of that, landscape replacement, any additional projects, things that aren't contracted, then we would submit all those invoices and settle up. Either we spent $75,000 that month, so you now owe an additional $25,000, or we spent less and we apply that to the next month. But, so that's what we're trying to work out, that payment plan, because we're finding ourselves constantly chasing checks and the vendors chasing us, and that's just not good business with our vendors.
Find out that you were not getting the money.
It's, since I've been with Pelican, that's the way they've been doing it. They've been paying after the fact. There's never been,
'Cause
so.
the contract always stated.
The contract
that.
always stated, and
I didn't know.
it just hasn't been happening for years. I don't know where it got off track, but that's why I said we need to make sure that we're following that agreement going forward, and so that's why I wanted to supply that information with the agreement.
I thought the budget even showed it at one point. I remember that.
Our operating account at Pelican is always negative. We are always holding checks and waiting for funds to go in.
Is it because of the new contract, or are you just now working to make sure that?
We're working to make sure that
That you get the
wherever
funds?
it got off track, I don't know when that happened, but now that we're going back to doing it the way the agreement originally stated, but I wanted to make sure we were at least doing it with the right amount of money.
Who on the CDD end, is it somebody on the staff here that you?
Ask for a check.
It'll be Severn Trent is
Severn Trent.
is ultimately, once it's approved, holds on to it and then issues the check and sends it back to us. And we're chasing 2 right now. So we're chasing over a month's worth of deficit fundings as we speak.
I see, so it comes out of Stephen Wu's organization?
Absolutely.
So if you did that, you would still send us all the invoices every month so that we could review them.
Exactly.
Even though you've got some of the money already.
Right. We would just be able to pay the contracts that we know the invoices are going to come in. We would be able to cut those checks and issue them right away,
The
but
American
still,
contract
right.
and-
Securitas, Cypress Access, but still be able to provide the documents at the end of the month, and then whatever else we spent, we'd be saying, okay, now we need those funds along with the $50,000 that we already hadn't spent. But it allows us to be ahead of the game versus constantly trying to hold checks.
I have to admit, I was shocked when I started doing this, and I'm realizing that you guys don't have the money to pay the bills.
We don't.
I'm surprised that it wasn't
Originally, it was
set up that way,
It was
absolutely.
set up.
And the contract always stated that. And even
Somewhere along the way, through the
Yeah.
change of people and hands, they've stopped doing that. And even when we had to ask for the pre-funding, you know, because we can't take on these large projects when we can't pay them for 60, 90 days, because they're still waiting for their regular contractual services check.
So we don't want, we're
Wow.
not gonna perform extra services for.
Right.
them.
Vendors are now saying, they're getting a little skittish, and they're now saying, okay, well, you know, we need 50% down, or we, need, you know, so, and I don't want to build that relationship with them.
No,
So,
we might be more skittish right now with the WCI sale coming up potentially and all that.
Okay,
so,
but you're getting it straightened out?
yes, sir.
Just a minor question on the comment that I had made on the exhibit about who we listed as the responsibility for the lights on Central Road.
Right.
Are we gonna change that, or?
We certainly, I was waiting for direction. I mean, we certainly can. I mean, you guys technically are paying for it now, so it is being funded by you.
Yeah.
But should it be, is really the gray area, because you're gonna ask for funds back, but
Yeah,
it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
But you are paying it, so that is an actuality, so I don't know.
Actuality, but when you talk about responsibility for funding,
Yeah.
we don't have the responsibility for funding. I mean, under the table, we're doing the funding, we're gonna try and get the money back, but it seems to me, in the agreement, John, and, you know, you could run this by Tony or something, but in the agreement, it seems to me we shouldn't be saying that we have the responsibility for funding those lights, the electricity for those lights, when we shouldn't be doing it. And the exhibit has us as being the funder.
Right, it has this, WCI is the owner, but the CDD is the funder.
CDD is the funder, and I don't think we should be the funder.
Okay.
Okay? I think that.
That was item which.
Correct exhibit B.
Huh?
Correct.
It corrected to the B, yeah.
But we, sir, I mean, actually, can't we just do that?
Like, change it
Yes.
yeah, as long
I
as,
mean, because it's not.
as long as Tony, I don't know what Tony's gonna push back on. I don't know if he's gonna
No,
say.
I mean, because
Yeah.
originally, I mean, that may be something that Tony never even saw.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just asked you to take a look at it.
Okay.
I don't wanna make a federal case out of it, but I just asked you to take a look at it, because it seemed to me, as I looked at those exhibits, that was the one thing that really caught my eye, as being, you know, something that was called my eye. Okay, we're on to, PPAC charter. Mr. DePonte, have we heard anything at all?
To be very short, I've not heard a thing.
Next item.
I asked Tony specifically about that, as I told you, and he promised that he had his comments, just had to review his comments. I'll talk to him about it again.
He mentioned it at the last city meeting.
Supervisor.
Oh, he did?
Mhm.
He just said he was only, you just said, he's still looking at it and trying to guess.
Okay.
I've been hearing that for
Three,
almost 4 months.
almost 4 months now. Been 4 months. Okay, use of bond funds update. Nancy, you're up.
Well, the fourth amended engineer's report and the case went forward at the last city meeting. And Dave Caldwell was there representing WCI. And so we were just about ready. We've been through everything and we were taking public comments, which was WCI coming to the forefront. And WCI said, well, you know, I think must be a couple of corrections that need to be made. We think we're owed $600,000. And supposedly, they had told Danny that. So, because of that, Tony asked a couple questions about what the $600,000 is for. And was it pre-bankruptcy, post-bankruptcy? And he said, well, I don't have the details, but it was probably some of both and so forth. So, the case got tabled pending more discussion and so forth. So we've got a conference call set up for the 16th. So I'll know more then about the direction it's going. But from what I understand, WCI, David did tell Tyler or Danny about the $600,000 a long time ago, but then never provided any detail exactly about what it was for. He was generally saying it was something about something out in the Palazzo area and piping and whatnot, but he wasn't very specific. So it's back to the drawing board.
More like an understanding in Caldwell's mind that when this fund terminated, they were gonna get back 600. Not really related, as Nancy said, to any specific So it's tabled, it'll be adjudicated over time, quickly.
I hope.
Because the other thing is the bond counsel was and heard it, and advised the group that this needs to be reconciled quickly because it's getting old. And Mr. Guy, give us some update.
I'm not at all happy with the way this turned out. There were more people involved in the construction of this fourth engineer's report than would fit in this room, and it still wasn't handled properly. The CDD board tabled the recommendation. And the way it stands right now, I can't see that I'm going to be able to get a majority to support it, which means we're going to have to do some more work on it. The bond counsel made it quite clear that he is thinking that we have spent way too much time on expending the proceeds of this bond issue. And I can understand that, and I think we can use that as leverage if we're as smart as we would like to think we are. And I think that to allow Mr. David Caldwell to stand up here and get red-faced about something that he had a conversation about months ago puts everybody in a bad light. Frankly, we look like we don't know what we're doing, and I am unhappy. Now, having said that, Bob, would you turn to page 10 in your fourth engineer's report that's in the agenda for today, please?
Yep. I'm there.
Everybody has a copy.
Now, we originally were thinking that the amount that we had to work with was $1,289,000 or thereabouts, and now it looks like it's more like $1,099,000 after we put in the $60,000 for some paving and some other things, right, Nancy?
That's correct.
Now then, I'm going out in front of myself, which I always hesitate to do, but inasmuch as the legal counsel said that we were, my words, not his, way beyond the normal length of time to expend these bond funds, I'm thinking that if Nancy or Bob or I or somebody told Tony that we wanted a resolution for the next board meeting to adjust this temporarily so that Bob can go ahead and spend at least $400,000.
$499, right?
Say again?
$499,
Yeah.
taking 6 out, yeah.
So that we don't run the risk of the bond counsel saying, time's up, you can't spend anymore, it's got to go back to the escrow for the repayment. That would allow Bob hopefully to get cracking on some more of his work. And at the same time, we could put some additional leverage on WCI to either detail specifically what this $600,000 is or go away.
I don't have any.
What are your thoughts?
I don't have any problem.
Bill, just a question, and maybe it's my ignorance. At the beginning of your statement here, you said you didn't think you could get a majority support for what don't you think you can get a majority support for?
the fourth engineer's report as it was presented to the board last week.
Oh, okay, so in other words, just to approve the report.
Well, there's,
Yeah.
from where I see it, is that there's probably some board members that don't understand why WCI shouldn't just be given their $600,000. And I think there's a lot of reasons why that needs to be investigated further. Because I don't know that they're entitled to their $600,000, I don't know that they can make their case for $600,000.
And there's some depreciation in there.
Right, and there's depreciation from it too, so, so I think that's
Oh,
generally
so you're saying you couldn't get a majority to support the
giving the full dollars.
full dollars as it is now?
Once WCI made the claim, that's
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes, that's my,
Do
that,
you think you can get
But-
the support to give 499,000 at this point?
As much as it's not being disputed, it's reasonable that.
I think so, if I can get Tony on board, and if I can get Danny on board, and that's more of a problem than you want to hear about, but the last thing in the world we want to do is lose the whole darn
Correct.
thing because the legal counsel says time's up.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
Well,
So-
Bill, in actuality,
Say
I
again?
don't want to cut you off, but in actuality, I can use the 499 within 30 days.
Okay.
And that's not a problem. We can present the recs and things we pay, charge it here. Once the board approves, that they'll let us do it. That'll take that off, we can get that off the board before this year's over. And that should satisfy what bond council's doing. But the methodology and with engineering report 4, this is just my opinion, is we were hoping the WCI didn't notice. Because nobody went up and said, by the way, we're aware that you thought you were gonna get 600, but now we reallocated, and now you're getting nothing.
Well, no, that's not true. That's not true, Bob.
I said my opinion.
That's not
Seriously,
true.
no one went to Caldwell and said,
Yes, they did. Yes,
Who?
they did.
who?
But Caldwell was specifically asked multiple times, and came back with 600,000 and gave no detail about it.
But he was
And so-
told that this report was gonna be presented without him getting the 600. Because that is not what he told me.
Who told you, Caldwell?
Yeah.
They knew all along that this case was moving forward.
Correct.
And hey, make your phone call to say.
And they didn't do that,
And
correct.
they didn't do it.
Correct.
So,
But what I'm saying is, the fact of the matter is, we knew we were going, collectively, and I'm talking Pelican, and we didn't go to them and specifically tell them. They waited for them to read the report. Again, this is Bob's interpretation. That may not have anything to do with that, but this is the way they perceived it. So they thought we were kind of trying to pull the wool over it. But at any rate, he still has to justify what he wants to do, as Bill said. We think, Tony says we're on very firm ground, depending on old WCI bankruptcy and all that. So it'll eventually be adjudicated. But where I'm coming from right now with Bill is, we're not arguing about the 499. Let's get that out of it. And I agree with that completely. And let's just say with the remaining 600, maybe we'll negotiate it down to 3. But whatever we negotiate it to, we're better off.
Yeah.
It's nothing but good news.
Bill, what procedure, do we have to do something to request this 499?
Well, I have to, there's a prior question that I need an answer to. If I heard correctly, Nancy said there's gonna be a telephone, conversation.
Not until the 16th, and your meeting's the next night, 17th. And you wanted a resolution by the 17th. I don't know that.
The board doesn't like things that come in.
I know.
Okay, nonetheless, if we do it right, they'll probably grind their teeth a little bit, but we can get them to okay it.
Bill, can't we put that on the agenda for that meeting?
The agenda for next week is locked up. So, the prior question is, if you want to proceed in this fashion, who's going to call Tony and tell him what we want?
Bob,
I got it. Oh, it's Bob.
Say again?
he said who?
I know, I thought you said Bob.
I didn't say Bob. I will make the call to Tony.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
You'll make the call to him,
I will make the call to Tony.
okay? And you know the number, so we're all set.
Then you want a resolution for the 17th.
Yeah.
That's right.
And certainly, it seems to me, couldn't we put this resolution in to the members even before this 16th call? Because, you know, if the 16th call somehow upends it,
We've done that before,
and you could pull it
but I don't
off,
want
at
to,
least- At least getting it as early as possible to the board, so it isn't.
yeah,
the day of-
yeah, we don't like to walk around and hand out the
Yeah.
paper and expect them to agree on something that they haven't had time to read.
On the board for a long time, I bet I've probably still been to more board meetings than Bob, Bill, I know.
Do we need to bring
Yeah,
Tetra
so-
Tech into this too, Dan? Would there be two calls to both of them, or?
Let me handle it.
I'm just asking a question. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to step in.
Okay, you're going to call Tony. Would you get back to me and let me know what you two have agreed on?
I'll call you, Bill, too.
Okay. And if we have a meeting of the minds, then I'll see if I can get Tony to write up a short resolution and send it to the members by email,
Okay.
so that they have it prior.
Yeah, prior to the-
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, so there's your update.
There's the. Okay, GSCDD meeting report. That was the meat of it as far as we were concerned. Any other questions of Bob, who gave us his report? If not, we'll move on to the Ponds Brook review.
Okay. First of all, the contract was approved by the board, as you got the minutes. It was $64,000. The effective date is going to be 12/1. Aquatics has been notified that they're over with on the 30th. And the new company has been notified, and we already scheduled the walk last week. The aeration maintenance agreement that I've talked about so many times has been approved for CES. We're moving forward with that. Aeration Phase 2, the bathymetric studies have been done. We are still doing the diffuser study, which should be finished by this Friday. So the only thing we have to do now is to get the contract approval out of the operations manager to authorize Marsh Riley to develop this contract and do the whole bid. And they're gonna do it all for us. Marsh Riley's gonna do the formal bidding, all the right-of paperwork, legalisms. They're also gonna do the survey inspections for easements and right-of-way. And they're also gonna do the engineering analysis of available electric where we think we want all this stuff. Those were the stumbling blocks we had the last time when we did the contract piecemeal. So now we've got it all into one company. We haven't presented it yet to the district manager, and that's another problem. I kind of want to talk a little bit about this. Hans is having a bit of a problem with our operations manager. And what I would like to do is get a sense of feedback on what is the proper way to go forward with the issues. And here are the issues. When I go to the ops manager and say, we want to do aeration maintenance, she doesn't want to have anything to do with it as far as selecting who does it or how or all that. So then I go to Tetra Tech and say, would you guys like to do it? And depending on how busy they are, the last two things, they've said, no, that's kind of not us. We ought to go someplace else. I said, how do I do it? And in one case, they said, all you need is 3 qualified bidders. So, okay, we went out and got 3 qualified bidders. We didn't put a bid out, and then when it came time that we got to the 9th hour to sign the agreement, and it comes to the ops manager to sign it, now we're all the way back to square one. Well, I don't think about this, I don't know what this is about, I can't do anything here. And the cogs just slow down and grind, and I lose 3 or 4 months while we bring that person back up to speed. We had the same thing with the contract maintenance that we just did, the $400,000 or $64,000 a year. And then didn't want to be involved, doesn't come to this meeting, so then when you hit her with this stuff, she knows nothing about it, and then, you know, again, we just lose hours and hours and hours, and a bunch of letters flying back and forth. The most recent issue is aeration phase 2. No involvement. Give Danny direction, I'm gonna go with Marsh Riley. Marsh Riley calls Danny and says, I need surveys or this, some items that they needed in technical support from their engineer. Ms. April tells them not to work on anything she doesn't approve. So Tetra Tech calls back Marsh Riley, she can't do it until April approves it. Now, I feel like a cat chasing my tail in this process. And I'm very frustrated about it. And rather than just me writing one of my, excuse my English, one of my shitty letters, looking for some input on what we think we should do. I'm questioning whether I should take it directly to the board. I've dealt with her a number of times, and that ain't doing no good. And when I challenged her why she needed to approve Marsh Riley helping, or Tetra Tech helping Marsh Riley, I got a bread and butter answer of, well, you know, I'm responsible for everything. And I have to allocate the resources of them. And I have to allocate the resources of Tetra Tech. And that sounded, you know, rather reasonable to me, okay? So I'm over here last Wednesday for something totally unrelated, picking up documents for my next bond meeting. And there was a meeting going on here. So I came in the meeting, because they told me it was ponds for, well, I knew Tinkle, and we worked very closely and very cooperatively together. So I just thought I'd come in and basically be Bob. So I walk in the meeting, and lo and behold, there's Mr. Tinkle, who I expected to see. But then we got the operations manager. She's in that meeting. And then we got the utility manager. Also, there's, you know, a CDD person. So there's two people there. And then I see Danny, Tyler, and Steve at Gateman. There's 6 people in the meeting. One is a resident, Mr. Tinkle. Everybody else on these services that we're trying to marshal and budget. Well, that infuriated me, quite honestly. Why would you be paying $180 an hour and have 3 of them? You should only have one person, you got the right person. So that's where my frustration has been. I'm venting right now, and I understand.
Well, let me just chime in, that just as this fourth engineers report was ready to go out, Tony sent it out to all of the parties.
I forgot that, yes.
And April saw it, and she said, well, I can't sign off on this, I don't know anything about it. And she was invited to be on the phone calls and all the meetings from the very beginning. And she elected to not participate.
So, but until it's time to step up and.
And then she says, I can't.
So, there's a lot of frustration here.
Bob, let me ask you this. Before April, how did these things operate?
We always had, like the meetings we had here,
Yeah.
where Abdo was here and Scott was here, you know, everybody's been participating until she left. Now, not participating in individual bonds meetings, although a couple times, when appropriate, they came. I would even be happy if she just came to our meeting, PPAC meeting. But I think PPAC has a problem. And I don't know what the root cause of the problem is, but the lack of participation and really the benign neglect where they're just trying to undermine us as far as I'm concerned. We're doing the work that maybe they feel they should be doing, and maybe they want to get paid for it. I don't know. But the short answer to your question, we've had active participation until she got the office. And it's been nothing but problems. And I can't even remember all the little things.
How long has she been in office?
6 months.
It's almost a year, right?
She came right after I started, so probably about February, March. 'Cause I think her first meeting was maybe even my first meeting on the second. And she told me that she did intend to come to any of our meetings if we had questions for her.
We couldn't even walk out and ask her questions. We had to bring them.
I hate to do this to you, Bill.
What you going to?
But I'd like to ask your comment.
You'd what?
I'd like to ask for your comments on this situation.
From a CDD perspective,
Yeah.
not just for the advisory committee, but from the CDD perspective.
Sometimes there is no perfect answer. But I would like to acquaint you with the fact that the board of the CDD is working very hard on a new organization structure. And while I wouldn't, if I could, tell you exactly how it's going to shape up, I can't because I don't know how it's going to shape up. But I would suggest that you just grit your teeth for another 4 weeks, and let's see how it works out on the organization structure, and then we'll discuss it with more intelligent information.
The only question I have for you is this some surprise or new information?
Say again?
Or is this a surprise, this kind of situation? Is this new information to you, or is it something you're kind of aware of in the back?
I've been aware of it in the back of my head,
Okay.
but didn't feel that the time was right to do anything, knowing what else, what the big picture was that was coming forward.
Can I ask you a question, Bill? Is there a sense then that, that April and her staff want to take over what we're doing and eliminate PPAC?
I have never heard that before.
Because that's almost the sense that
That-
I get from talking to her.
You've shocked me.
Well,
That's
I
brand new
talked-
to me.
I talked to her about the need for us to get the reserve going. She goes, well, we're gonna be doing one, and we're gonna do it for all of the district.
Hmm.
And so we'll just include yours with ours. And I said, well, I think we're probably a little further along than you are on that, and so forth, but, it just dropped it.
Well,
But-
I can't comment on that. I've never heard that before.
Good, bad, or indifferent, I kind of have the same sense.
Okay. Phil, okay.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. So,
Okay.
Bob, you willing to
Just-
hang in there?
Absolutely.
Let me
It
ask
isn't
this.
personal, really, it's
Yeah,
procedural.
but based on your comments and yours, are you feeling then that they want to hire staff to get paid for what P-PAC has been doing?
Oh, I wouldn't go that far, I don't know that yet. I'm just commenting on the lack of cooperation and support.
I'm just gonna make one comment. Organization development is my master's degree. This is what I deal with, and it's more than just an individual issue. Individual is the root of it. The real problem is the culture that's growing, and it's a new culture that's happening in the CDD. Just keep that, tuck it away. You can use it to your advantage to shape the culture to something healthier and more beneficial for all the communities involved.
That's a positive report, I don't know anything else.
Yeah, I just.
Oh, I gave you, I'm sorry. Everybody got a copy of what phase 2 aeration is, with the bathymetrics, et cetera, so that's what it is, they're the ponds we're gonna be doing.
They call them bathymetrics?
Yeah, well, yeah, this is a bathymetric study which maps the lake based on depths
Okay.
for the ponds.
Is that in our packet here?
It's in there too, I didn't know it,
Yeah.
I had an individual handout made. The one in the packet is in color.
And-
Mine's, again, I'm being cheap, I do black.
Well, just one question, maybe comment, question. At the ponds report to the president's meeting this morning, Doug, reported on some of the things that were being worked on. Finally got to the subject of the drainage. And he seemed a little not knowing everything about what's going on in that sense, that he said, well, if you got a drainage thing in your community and you wanna work with us, give me a call. And I had the impression that you had said that you were gonna go out proactively.
We are.
And talk to the communities, and that's what
Well,
I.
here's the thing.
Yeah,
Doug is chafing at the bit
yeah,
to get this done.
yeah.
And I keep pouring water on him based on the results of the last engineering report. We thought that was gonna fly through, I thought it was gonna fly through the board.
Yeah.
And we were trying to get people lined up so we didn't wait 6 months
Right.
to go. Okay, it rained on that parade. So then I had to rain on his parade. I said, well, we can't do it yet, but we do have some money in there to do this. So I think what he's saying is those communities that step up first, and we just turned the up, you know, what's he want? That'll be the first priority because we have funds to start.
Yeah.
So he's done an awful lot of work,
Oh, yeah.
up to the point
Yeah.
where we got a real bid in our ear.
Mhm.
And I believe that his intent in that meeting today was, who wants to be the first one so we can get a bid?
Mhm.
So then we'll go.
Okay.
Now, in all honesty, the way we were planning on approaching this before the fourth engineers report, on the bottom, is just like we did with aeration, just like we've done everything else. We will start allocating, aeration will be done this year. But that was $100,000 over budget. Well, we'll put that now in the future, and we're gonna call it rain spout, drainage, downspout, whatever. And we're gonna put money in there, and then as soon as we accumulate enough, we'll go spend it, and then we'll do the next, we'll do it in phases. So if we get the windfall of the $499, that's a pretty nice chunk to get started, and that will complete all of Old Pelican.
Mhm.
And we can do that, we can get that money within 30 days. We'll start on that in 2017. And we'll be doing neighborhood by neighborhood, we'll be ready to go.
But Doug threw out a number of 321.
I thought it was 310, but I
Yeah.
don't, yeah.
Yeah.
We think that's a bit, but
But
again,
I-
we don't have a bid.
Okay.
We have estimates.
Okay. Because my question really was whether you were gonna be, you know, so what you're telling me is you're gonna ask the communities to come in and ask for the service as opposed to you going out.
Well, yes, and here's why. Keep this in mind, foremost in mind. You can't force anybody to do anything.
No, I understand.
Okay, so we're trying to go to the community, and when we're willing to spend this money, we're doing it with a couple strings. This is all our money, okay? I say we, but when Ponds goes to a neighborhood, and we put in the infrastructure in the ground we think we need, the commitment we want back from the neighborhood is that they're gonna maintain it. In other words, every year they're gonna have it inspected and blown out, et cetera. Because if we just put it in and it's ignored, why bother? It will clog up, and we'll be in the same problem with erosion and everything else we have. So the neighborhoods that are jumping forward, that, you know, you don't have to beat them to get them to do it. The neighborhoods that are coming forward says, we're interested, we're willing to make the commitment of every year we're gonna do whatever. That's the neighborhoods we want to start. If that kind of makes sense. That's-
Yeah.
That's the
I
thought process.
think it makes sense. I'm not sure it was communicated quite that, you know.
Well, and again,
clearly.
it's informational right now in the
Yeah.
president's meeting, just, you know,
Yeah.
big picture.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to have far more meetings than we have with aeration when we go to do this.
Yeah.
Because if I thought that was gonna be tough, way to do this, you're digging somebody's yard.
Mhm.
We know we're gonna have a lot of issues. And then when you get to Cypress Grove, it's a whole other task.
Mhm.
Because we gotta convince those homes to put in gutters down.
Goes, yes. That,
That's gonna be
somebody brought,
another- yeah.
somebody brought that issue up as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do think, I know people at Portofino, I think, like I say, our board has approved to work with you guys right away. But once you tell a homeowner, hey, pay for the gutters and downspouts, here's what else we're gonna do for you.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a no-brainer.
Well, you say that.
Depends how it's presented.
I totally, you can't believe some of the feedback
Well, not
we've gotten.
if somebody
over
doesn't
minor
put-
increases.
If they don't put in the gutters,
I
we
know,
can't
I know,
force them.
I know, I know. I've been surprised at certain things that we've done in this committee over the last 8 years, when you ask somebody to put another $10 in taxes, 1 year we almost have a revolt.
Okay, let's move on. Any other questions on pond? Catalyst is working with John, we already covered.
We covered it.
I think we can ask Diane, want to be sure we're covered by putting these things in place.
That's fine, I like being six instead of after ponds.
We were hoping, I read.
But you didn't have yourself to deal with.
I don't even understand.
Comments.
Safety and Security Work Group. The traffic control agreement, which I had hoped we would have completed at least the agreement that everybody said is okay, 2 months ago. Well, now the city is telling us that they have a couple of more departments that have to look at the agreement before they're ready to sign off on it. Once they sign off on the agreement, we then have to have an inspection and a survey by the city engineering department to look at our signage to make sure that it's the standards of the Fort Myers Police Department. Once that is done, then we're in a position to sign, to have the CDD actually sign the agreement. So we're not there yet, but hopefully we can get that done. There has, as far to my knowledge, and I've asked Tony about this again, the issues we have with the Cypress Grove conveyance of the Cypress Grove roads are still open. They have been communicated to WCI counsel, and I think he's not gotten any kind of response tonight, so we're still waiting. But I don't think we're not in a big hurry to get that conveyance done. So that's still going on.
If I may tag on to that.
Sure.
I forgot to mention the track L inspections.
Yes.
Mars Riley's doing them as we speak.
Okay, that's your part of it.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
my only,
The
where I
thing
have in the water.
For the ponds,
Ponds
yeah.
has that in there.
We've got 4 issues with the roads, that we want them to come to the
And the
park.
good news from the pond's point of view is, they're about 80% done, and they found no construction or major blockages or any issues at all, so that's very, very good news. As an aside, since they're out there and have the equipment, we asked them to do a sampling of 30% of what they did for us in 2012. They pick up, just pick 30, and then we'll see if they've gotten better, worse, or degraded. So I'll be able to report in future meetings what we found with that.
Okay, last thing is broadly what we call traffic regulation in Pelican Reserve, but really it is the golf cart and bicycle issue. I think you all have the memo that I prepared. Just to review it, we had a group of interested parties meet with the city, with Mr. Richard Moulton, who is the interim director of Public Works, and he turned out to be quite a knowledgeable and helpful guy. And what we determined from that is that the CDD has the power to regulate traffic, make rules for traffic regulation, make rules for signage. But anything that they do, they must get a permit from the city. And the city will look at the permit to make sure that it is with the proposed regulations are conform to city codes, the manual of uniform traffic control, the traffic control agreement, and we finally get that into place, and finally that it's safe, that anything we propose is safe. We then started to look at the golf cart, and we obviously have them, and bicycle regulations. And what we determined was that the DRI said that the developer was supposed to have provided a bicycle path within the community that would connect the various parts of the community. They use the term pods, the various pods in the community, that there should be a bicycle path that connects the pods in the community. And so we believe that the only practical way to do that is to designate the shoulder lane on Pelican Reserve Boulevard and ultimately on Cypress Grove Drive, when we get that, as being a bicycle lane. Now, having done that, the question becomes, can that bicycle lane be shared with golf carts? And our conclusion is that it really shouldn't be, for a number of reasons, and let me reiterate them. They're in the memo, but let me reiterate them. First, as the golf carts themselves are 4 feet wide, a 4-foot lane doesn't really keep them in, so they're sticking out into traffic. I think that's a dangerous situation. Second, if we have a lane that is designated as a bicycle path, you can't have human-powered, you can have nothing but human-powered vehicles in that path. You can't have golf carts, you can't have anything that's not human-powered in that particular path. There is the requirement that if you had a golf cart in the path and it's passing a bicycle, it has to provide at least 3 feet of space between it and the bicycle that it's passing. That would require the golf cart to swerve out into the roadway. We think that's very dangerous. Finally, we're concerned that if the golf carts were riding in that lane, and they go to make a left-hand turn, they have to cross a lot of lanes in order to do that. So our conclusion was that it makes sense to designate the shoulder lane as a bicycle lane and to have the golf carts ride in the regular vehicular lanes. And we are proposing that this committee recommend that to the CBD. Having said all that, I'm open for questions or discussion.
I'm a cyclist.
Yeah.
I have had golf carts come up when I'm in a bicycle lane and beep for me to get out of the way. The only place to get out of the way is traffic. And
They asked you?
they beep their horns, and I'm like, I can't believe they're beeping at me. And then they passed me and said, get out of the lane so we can use it. It's dangerous. There's lots of golf carts that still use that bike lane. Ameriscape uses their carts in the bike lane too. So if you're riding your bike and something's parked there, you have to go into traffic to get around. So it is an unsafe situation. I support designating it 100% as human-powered vehicles only.
Now, I should note, by the way, and as I did in the memo, that when we marked those the shoulder lanes as a bicycle lane, we did so without the correct permission to do so. So we didn't go through the right procedure. We didn't get CDD approval, and we didn't get permits to do it. So this would mean we would have to go through that procedure. Any other comments?
Well, the one comment about a golf cart that has to make a left-hand turn
Yeah.
is applicable to bikes. It's just like, doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it's a bike or bicycle.
Actually, bicycles go through the crosswalks, so you can go up to the crosswalk and pass over.
Good luck
If you
getting
do
involved
that,
to
if you do that on a bicycle, you should get off your bike and walk it.
That is the law.
I mean, that's the case in Ocean City where we are and everything, they have bike lanes and everything else. Here, I mean, I don't have a mirror, but I mean, I just stick my hand out, nobody's, and go out in traffic and get in the other lane and make a left-hand turn.
I stick my hand up there, and I also leave the devices for not to do anything other than not alarm them. I certainly don't want them to move. But I'm just saying, hey, I'm here, and I'm gonna go down. But I do that in reserve too, when you have people that are.
You can usually hear them coming up.
Well, I
You
don't
just
do
look.
anything, but, yeah,
So where do you drive your golf cart?
anywhere I want.
But do you drive in the bicycle lane or the road?
I'm very seldom, I always go through the reserve, not physically go, the perimeter of the reserve. Not the only place I go unless I'm doing something for Bob's. And then I generally do not ride a bike, I seriously don't, I'm generally in the automobile. But, again, I'm always.
Because the cyclist, I had the same kind of problem she had, it's difficult when you've got cars in the bike path.
And you have to go into traffic.
So I totally support this, but I will be remiss if I don't say, does this satisfy the need of the request of the board that we get the traffic study?
What wants us to do a traffic study, do a traffic study.
Is there any indication that the board doesn't? this is, currently then, this is in lieu of that study, but not excluding the possibility.
No.
This is just a recommendation.
A recommendation.
Got it.
Now, and as I noted in the memo, the recommendation, before we take it to the board, we are recommending that it be passed by Tony, so that he can give us his thoughts on it, because he's written memos that don't say you have to let the golf carts ride in the shoulder lane, but that you could let the golf carts ride in the shoulder lane. That's what his memo said. So, at least that's the way we interpret it.
What you are saying is, once the bicycle details are in the lane,
Yeah.
it has to be a bicycle lane only.
That's correct.
That's state law, right?
Would it be appropriate for me to make a recommendation to that we accept this as written and Tony's file, so we don't lose another month? We have to take it.
Yeah. Yes, we have a speaker. We have a speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't usually carry this water, but I cannot help but telling you that I disagree with virtually everything you said. Pelican Preserve was and is a designated golf cart community. And part of that designation is the golf carts have to be safely driven. There are 400 golf carts in Pelican Preserve and only a few dozen bicycles. 4-foot lane is plenty to drive a golf cart in. I do it all the time. On every single road I have driven, I can stay in the lane. And if you can't, maybe you don't know how to drive.
Why do you think there's only a couple dozen bicycles in Pelican Preserve?
Well, you tell me how many. I've only seen maybe 6 or 8 or 10 at a time, but I know how many golf carts there
I
are.
know 30 people that I could name right here that ride bicycles every day.
All right.
There's 70
like-
members in the bicycle club alone.
How many?
70
All right, a few
I
dozen.
would say 50% of the community
has a bike.
Can we,
Or
I'd
two.
like to hear.
Why
Yeah.
not three?
Okay,
Let's hear.
let's hear what Bill has to
Keep
say.
going.
Hmm?
Let's hear what Bill has to
I
say.
said a few dozen. I don't know exactly how many.
It's a lot. At least 50% of the residents have a bike or two or more.
Well, if you know that, that means that you have taken a survey, and I have not, but I doubt it very much.
Okay.
We
You
s-
continue.
Please.
I don't want to argue
Right, just give
with
us
the
a-
board.
That's fine.
What you're saying, but you're not saying it, is that you want 70 and 80-year-old residents who have golf carts to go to the town center, but they're too old to play golf, but they have golf carts to go to the town center for their arts and the crafts or whatever, driving in the auto truck lane where you have testified before the board that the trucks and autos do not, or I should say, they routinely ignore the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit to the point where you're going to ask the Fort Myers police to come in and enforce. Now, if that's not a dichotomy, I can't think of what else it might be. From what I read about the meeting with the city, the only way that bicycle paint is authorized is if the CDD passes a resolution authorizing it and sends it to the city and they authorize it. Since neither one of those things have been done, I suspect that those bicycle signs should be painted over forthwith.
Yeah.
You have is there a motion?
I made a motion.
I will second it for discussion. right?
Yes, yes, okay, further discussion. That-
Before, when the topic of the traffic study came up, originally, traffic study, we budgeted for it. A traffic study won't take that long to get going, and I think somebody coming in to the community to do a traffic study and actually observing the bike traffic, how golf carts drive. Bill may be able to drive in those lines. I'd say 90% of the people I've seen can't.
Right, I
Can't
agree.
stay in the 4-foot lane.
They're sticking out into the road.
And it scares me to death when I see somebody riding in that lane that wants to make, coming down the boulevard from up where I am, trying to make a left-hand turn to go up to the town center to do their arts and crafts, and having to come all the way from that shoulder lane, all the way across to make that turn, or to get around a vehicle parked there, because that, it seems to me, that's at least as much, if not more dangerous than driving in the road. So I think, I'd like to recommend not only the legal review, but also the traffic study be done before it's presented to the board. I think we can probably do that pretty quickly.
I'm okay with that all the way.
Do you want to amend your?
No, they're two separate
You
things.
can amend it to.
There's
Well, I would like,
Two
I'd like to
separate
handle
things.
them independently.
You got a motion on the floor.
I
Sorry,
still stand
second.
by the motion that I made,
Yeah.
and I'm certainly open to a motion to do the
Second.
traffic study.
Do
I don't want
we
to amend my.
have statistics?
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Most of you know, I had the original involvement with this particular issue of the original SSWG. Some of you may recall, the benefit of the newer members, what we recommended is something a little slightly, only slightly different than what the existing SSWG is recommending. We recommended to you guys that there be a combined bicycle/cart lane, but we could not agree as to whether the 4-foot wide shoulder was sufficient from a safety perspective to allow that to happen. That's kind of like a history, you know, of the SSWG, if you will. Personally, I don't think the lane in its present width is safe enough to combine bicycles and golf carts. So I agree with the existing motion that it's probably, we should not have a combined lane if it's gonna be only 4 feet wide. As far as the traffic study is concerned, I don't know who's gonna write the statement of work for that traffic study, but I think we collectively need to be very clear as to what we want that contractor to study. Do you want him to study how fast vehicles are going, or do you want him to study, is a 4-foot wide lane safe for both bicycles and golf carts? And do we want him to do both things?
Absolutely.
Given the fact that we've got, a Fort Myers police looking at, coming in to monitor speeders, I don't know whether we need a traffic study to look at speed in the community. Okay, but since the CDD has directed us to do a traffic study, I'm not completely clear if they specified exactly what they wanted that traffic study to do.
They did not.
I think if we limit it to, is it safe to have a bike/cart lane that's 4 feet wide? I agree with Nancy, we're going to get that done relatively quickly and not expend a lot of money doing it. And that's my 2 cents.
Do we have a sense of how many golf carts there are in Pelican?
Well, you threw out the number of 400.
Well,
I would suggest it's
Seems on the
probably.
low side.
It's probably low, yeah, I think that's low.
and is there a way to poll the community to see how many people own bikes?
Oh, I don't know if that's needed.
I don't, yeah, what,
Even if it's one person, they deserve to be safe.
I would like to be safe on my bicycle.
yeah.
Well, and the other question that came to me as you were explaining this, Bill, is that the DRI says the developer will there it is.
How they connect their ponds.
Well, yeah, well, you know, one of the things that WCI would say is people can ride on the sidewalks.
Well, there go your pedestrian safety right out the window.
Okay,
It's
well,
not safe.
That's,
we do have a motion, so we adjudicate that.
Well,
Can we delay that motion for a motion about the traffic study?
Paul's gonna do it in sequence, but that's fine.
Oh.
That's okay. I withdraw the motion temporarily.
yeah, because it seems to me that the traffic study motion ought to come afterwards, because you're gonna supersede some of what's in here.
Okay, all right.
Right? We're not going directly, we're gonna go to Tony, but we're not gonna go directly to the board until after the traffic study. That's a sense of what I'm getting.
All right, so put your motion back up. I've already seconded it. You can vote on this.
Any further discussion on Bob's motion?
So this is to go to Tony and then perhaps to the board following.
The study.
Huh?
Okay, this,
This is only what Phil had written in this report.
that it go to Tony, for Tony to look at this.
If Tony says there's nothing wrong with our language, or nothing illegal with it, then we can present what we have to the board. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Now, the second
Seven.
motion, I believe we have an obligation, whether it's foolish or not, or whatever, you know, not gonna qualify my personal judgments on it, but we've had, I think we need to make a motion to get this traffic study done. We were clearly directed to do it a long time ago.
I second the motion to do the traffic study.
Okay, now I'd like to have some discussion with that.
Okay.
Are we saying that we want to do the traffic study before we complete this procedure?
I don't see why they would, I think they could be completely independent.
I agree.
I think they can be on parallel tracks.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think before it goes to the board, we need to have.
Well,
Yes.
right.
Does that
but that's what-
finished?
This,
It's
What that
safer.
first motion was, to take it to
this
the board.
was to take it to the board. So we are now saying, don't take it to the board until
No,
the traffic
right.
study is finished. Is that what we're
No,
saying?
what I would
You
think,
can't
Phil,
finish.
my sense is, we now start down the path if we agree on the traffic study. Okay, so that's happened.
Yeah.
We have an adjudication on this one done, it's good. We're gonna take it to the board and say, here's kind of where we are right now, but the traffic study we expect to have completed by this date. Do we want to consider this an interim measure? And if the traffic study doesn't refute it, it doesn't challenge it, then we just go with it. But if the traffic study points us in another direction, we adapt at that time. That's how I see it.
I don't think the traffic study should monitor the speed limit. That's already an issue that's been taken care of.
Well,
When you do the traffic study, let's do it comprehensively.
yeah, let's do that, because,
Really?
for example, and there have been, questions about the speed limits on some of the roads. Most particularly, and it was presented to me again this morning, and that is that the speed limit, once you go over the bridge, on Pelham Reserve Boulevard, drops to 15 miles an hour. And the people, I think the board in Viadana is gonna propose to the Safety and Security Work Group that we look at whether that should be increased to 25 miles an hour. And having it at 15 is not a good idea. If we increase it to 25, then the Fort Myers Police Department can then enforce it. So I think the traffic study has to be broader than just the golf carts and golf. I think it's gonna be
You know, my nickel's worth is it should definitely be the golf carts, it should definitely be the bike lanes. The speed limit has to be, get some direction for professionals, what's prudent. I'd also like to see recommendations for dips or bumps in areas where we can't control traffic, as much as I hate them. I'd like to see that, and I'd like to see the effect of the traffic gate on the community. Kind of looked at, is it unsafe? Have we really got cars backing up on tree line? If we're gonna do the traffic study, let's do it good.
I have a problem with us taking this to the board and flagging the traffic study.
I do too.
Okay, then we won't.
I mean, I agree
reluctance in not taking something to the board is simply it's been so friggin' long from the day we got that direction. All for good reasons, I understand all that, it's been a long time.
Not
Nobody's arguing that.
Okay.
taking, what, you mean taking the traffic study?
No, no, no. Appointing the board with something other than traffic.
But I think we're giving them incomplete information.
That's what I think.
Yeah, they can't make a determination until we have all the facts.
Well, one of the things I didn't see here and what you, have was somewhere along the line, and I forget where I came across it, but wasn't there a requirement in our communities built that those lanes had to be 11 feet wide?
Yeah. You
So-
mean the regular traffic?
The regular traffic lights, so they are currently 11 feet. We can't narrow them. So the real issue is, can golf carts be safe? If we can't change the width of the other lights, can they be safe?
You know, in the earlier traffic study,
They said make it a one lane.
well, in the David Plummer traffic study, they looked at three possibilities. They looked at golf cart only trail, which was clearly impractical, because where would the bicycles go, kind of thing. They looked at the, you know, golf, having a golf cart lane, by widening the shoulders. They said that was impractical. So they said the Pelican Reserve internal road system can be identified as golf cart routes. Now, what defines that doesn't say that internal road system necessarily has to be the vehicle lanes. It does say it could be the internal road system. So what that says to me is it could either be the vehicle lanes or it could be the shoulder line. So that's what the earlier study said, but I think we'll probably have to do it again.
I don't hold myself out as a model driver by any stretch, but I'm able to stay in the golf cart.
I have another question. I don't know the golf cart, I don't know but if your golf cart is designated street ready, like some of them are, do you have to have a driver's license?
Not in
Not in our community.
You have to
When
be
you
a
said
certain
designated.
age.
Not public roads.
But if it's a public road, then a golf cart driver must have a driver's license.
You know, one of the things is between public and private here, and we drop back, because this came up in our discussion with the city, we are a kind of a hybrid.
Absolutely.
We are not public, we are public roads, but they're CDD public roads, not City of Fort Myers public roads. And that's the reason you have to sign an agreement with the Fort Myers Police Department in order to get them in here. But they're public roads in the sense that, as we all know, anybody can come up to that gate and say, I wanna go through, this is a public road. So it is a public road and it isn't a public road, it's kind of a hybrid. That's the way I look at it.
So you do not need a driver's license on a non-public road, but what about a hybrid road?
Well, at this point, there is no requirement for a license because the CDD in there, when they put the regulations in, the original resolution, they said that people must have to be 16 years old or older in order to drive golf carts in the community. That was the rule. And the city is telling us that the CDD can make rules as long as they're permitted by the city. And that was one of the rules.
Have we looked at other communities comparable in size? I've been to the Villages several times, I have family up there, and it's just common courtesy, they don't have designated,
They have.
well, they have a
They have
cart
lanes that are
trail
carts,
that
carts only.
is not on the road, it's always, well, actually, it is on the road in some communities there, it is.
See,
Yeah,
they're a different fish.
Well, and
Oh,
then.
yes, they are.
And then you have, out by, Sanibel, you have the retirement. Shell Point up there, and they drive their golf carts on the road, that goes down into Shell Point from, Summerlin. So they're actually on the road.
So we don't have golf cart lanes that connect to the town center at all?
Depends on, if you consider the macadam path around the preserve, like from Sienna, Yeah, there's a golf cart path, human path, bike path. You can even take a golf cart in the reserve and the boardwalk.
But, by the way, that's supposed to be equivalent to not get lost at some point. But you can.
At the present time.
You can, present time. you can do that. As a matter, just as a matter of interest, which I forgot to mention, I told the presidents this morning that we were gonna be proposing, and there was not a peep that.
Really?
Nobody said, don't do that. There was nobody who said we shouldn't do it.
Don't push back.
No pushback.
I'd like to have a nickel for every minute we spend on this in the
I
last few
agree.
years.
I mean, is there a way for us to actually ask the golf cart people how many people are scared to drive in them?
Well,
I don't think that's necessary, I think,
I wouldn't open up that can of worms.
and, and I think quite frankly, the board of supervisors is as tired of hearing
Yeah.
about this whole thing as the rest of us. That's why I think we take the whole package at one point,
At one point.
with the traffic
Everything.
studies, that was.
We need to be able to
I absolutely agree.
I want to
establish an
support our
objective
committee. I want
argument.
to support our safety
We
ordinance.
know what kind of response we're gonna get.
Okay, so, the motion is on the table to have a traffic study.
Second. If I can
Any
afford-
further discussion?
I think you first need to.
I'd like to, I think the motion with the traffic study should be with clear definition of what we want
Yes.
them to look at.
Oh,
They need
yeah,
a,
yeah.
they need a scope of work.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
SSWG.
It's kind of implied in the motion.
I know.
Sometime.
Well, I trust that the SWG will work
Yeah,
on a scope that'll be as comprehensive as the things we talked about here.
that's correct. Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Okay. The SSWG will
Excuse me,
take
how,
care.
this is Ron.
Yeah.
Did the SSWG, will it take charge of writing statement of work? And I don't know, who does the contract?
Yeah, we will have I believe, the CDD staff.
I think before Danny wanted to be part of that.
Okay,
So.
we'll check with Tetra Tech and,
Get April's
Okay. We will come up with specs, with the help of Tetra Tech.
Do we
Yeah,
vote?
we
We
did.
didn't vote
Okay.
on the last motion, did we?
Yes, we did.
Ron did Ron?
I voted yes for it.
Oh, thank you.
I heard you say okay.
Did you vote on the
And traffic
traffic
Oh,
study.
study?
that's right, no, he said something.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
So, okay.
Yes.
Anything further on the safety and security work group? Background check, Jan was ill and did not have time to work on
I did not.
some different stuff, so we will put that off until the next meeting.
Thank
Hey,
you.
what? Month you were sick? All right.
The Gateway meeting attendance schedule.
I was scheduled for the 17th. Is that when all this bond issue is coming up? Would somebody, I actually have a conflict. Would anybody like to take my place? And I will do the next one, which is the 3rd, is that
I
correct?
think you were covered pretty far out.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'll be glad to sell with somebody.
Okay.
I think I'll be here, so I'm no problem. I don't think,
Well,
I doubt very much that Bond will be ready by then, do you?
Well,
It is gonna come up.
Yeah.
The issue of the $400,000 is gonna come
your
up.
$499, yeah.
I'll have to be here, but I don't know.
Well, I want both of us here.
What?
Yeah, it's a waste of time. We both sat through the last one.
Yeah, the whole meeting, so got to it.
You better, you know,
Okay, so.
like I said, some people want to be.
Okay, so.
Nancy.
Huh?
All right, fine, but I don't even know if it's gonna get on the agenda.
If it is not on, well, it won't be on the agenda, it will not be on the official agenda.
But Bill said he was gonna get it in.
But Bill was gonna just send it out and then,
I have a call with Tony as soon as we're in here.
okay.
So already arranged, so, but
And
I'll
Danny
have-
too. Danny said that.
I wanna talk to Tony first, Danny tomorrow.
If you have a problem, Nancy, I'll be happy to hear it.
Yeah,
Somebody else wanna do it.
and in fact.
I'm available, but I don't want both of us to go, so
When is the December 2nd? Because I'll gladly take it.
December 1st.
December
That's fine.
Okay, well, we
I don't-
had,
I think we tabled December first, that's why.
I haven't heard back.
It's not on our minutes.
Guys, I hate to leave this interesting meeting, but I really have to be someplace. We should have left at 4:00.
Okay.
Nancy, I need to talk to you on a
Oh.
different subject
Okay.
at some point.
Okay.
if it isn't business.
It's not P-PAC
Not this
business,
business.
it's personal.
Okay,
Okay.
I know better.
John, you'll cover
December first.
December 1st?
Correct.
Okay, I can cover December 15th.
Surely there's not a meeting on the 29th.
No, there will be. Yeah,
There
it's
were
2
only
meetings a
two
month.
two meetings a month.
Okay.
So John, you're December 1st.
Right.
Nancy, you will cover the 17th?
I'll cover the 17th.
I'll check my schedule, I can, but I'll check to see, I can cover it perhaps.
Well,
Let me check, and I'll.
no, I'll cover it, but
Okay. Okay, and, so John, you're the 1st, and I'll take the 15th.
You wanna do January?
No, let's hold that.
Too far away.
Yeah, too far away. We'll decide that in our next meeting.
We're old.
Okay.
Well, apparently if you can't drive in a five back the lane without staying in line, you shouldn't be driving, period.
Committee member requests, audience comments.
the only thing I will mention for, I know Jan didn't know, but that the elections were held and Kathleen Flaherty,
She won.
she won the supervisor position, the one that Gary Newbauer's vacating.
Where does she live?
Gateway, but I mean, I know,
Stony
she's
Brook.
been in a meeting, she was in the last meeting we had. As reluctant as she was to speak, they tried to pin that tail on the donkey, and she wasn't having any of it. I'm just a member, but now she's gonna be able to do it. Nice one.
Any other comments? Audience comments?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do we have pigs?
Sometimes.
Yes,
Well,
there are wild.
Wild pigs.
There are wild.
We don't have them, but there are wild pigs.
We have them in Pelican then.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes.
But you say, do we have them?
Tus-
We're infected
Tuscana.
with them, it's like termites. but they're-
Tuscana has them.
Well, Matarita has them too.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I could have sworn I heard a pig the other morning having my coffee. It was still dark and I'm like,
Gateway has it sometimes.
pig? Is that a pig?
Oh, they do tremendous
Oh, they're
damage.
terrible.
Wicked.
Very quickly.
Very good.
Quickly, they can
Very-
destroy.
They were on the
So-
golf course.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they're.
Sarah, do you know about pigs?
Wild
In
pigs?
the community, wild pigs?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
we have them.
Yes.
Yes, no, I know we do. The only thing you could really do, I think there's some traps set up throughout, but, you can also treat for like grub and things like that, because that's what they feed off of.
Yeah.
Well, they're on the golf course
That's
behind
what
my
they-
house, so.
Yeah.
That's what they do, but they have treated much of the golf course for the grubs that they go after, so that they're less destructive.
Less destructive.
They're a lot less destructive.
But I did see a note that Destinations is having a pig roast.
Bring your own pee.
I'm just saying.
BYOP.
Came out today.
BYOP.
We're having a pig roast.
That's
Okay.
good, Sarah.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second
at least
that.
a half hour late.
An hour late.
Meeting is adjourned.
You'll have confidence in me later.
Oh.
All right, I'm out of here.
So much fun.
Thank you for attending that. Now I can go to my cocktail party. Yeah.
I watched this thing for you.
And they-
Bye, Ron.
Next-
Oh,
Yeah, good night, Ralph.
Good to see you, Ron.
Bye, Ron.
When will you be back?
I'll be back on the 1st of December.
Ah, okay.
How's Dottie's class going?
I'm off tomorrow, Monday and Tuesday.
I bet she is.
3 days of my 11th, and I'm going to stay for the football.
Giveaway.
No, hopefully you'll run the car.
I knew you were off tomorrow.
Yeah.
That one I saw.
Yeah.
All right, enjoy your
So if you have
Thanksgiving, we'll see.
anything, I'll send out an email, yeah, right.
Thank you.
I'll send out an email, now. And I'll have my cocktail, we gotta do anything, but we'll try not to.
Since I really sent a letter, I didn't need to.
Did, Bill call you, or did you?
Yeah.
talk to Bill? How did that come about? Because you two were
Oh, he
talking.
stopped
Yeah,
it
that's
too.
what he said.
And
So
so-
just- right now, it's just gonna supply
Yeah.
what Dwelling Live does, and then we'll put together a
He
letter.
just said,
covering
what
it.
if?
What if?
We
He
just
just
wanna
talked
see
to us
that.
about
Oh, I thought that's what it is. Apparently he's been
Our
thinking.
Dwelling Live
So
doesn't
he
provide
blindsided
on the
me.
Dwelling Live.
Oh,
There's
wait a
no-
He knows that I've been working on it.
I'm very sorry. I-
And,
You know, why would they send that
He
to
called
first
me
with the link to
before,
YouTube?
you know.
I had never talked to him outside of here
And then say,
today.
you know, we'll
But
comply.
remember when you
on
and I
our
were talking when we
letter
left the meeting?
specific and
I
tailor
said,
it
even
out.
if they get to 3, it's still
But we
losing us
would
now.
want
So
to
we
Yeah.
pay
some
them
of the-
first.
So,
Hey, let me know how Portofino.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they
I
probably
will
some of
still
the
get
feedback
right
from
back.
what they see on YouTube and stuff, they might want to add something additional water that we would do. So we can work it out.
Bye, thank
Bye,
you
see
guys.
later.
You guys are super.
Okay, so just, you and I
So
are
let's just say, this is
on
what
podcasts
Dwelling Live
that
puts
said,
out, and yours,
but that's not,
take
okay.
time to look at it,
Gotcha.
provide some
Okay.
feedback if you have any questions and feedback, and then we will compile a more detailed cover letter specific to Pelican residents.
I know what you're.
Yeah, oh, I know you know, I mean, you're on, but what I needed to do was get off the table.
Okay, alrighty. Well,
So-
y'all have a good night.
Well,
You too, thank you.
I thought I did something wrong, and I never would. I
We're
pissed
not
off
allowed
enough
to make
people
comments
trying.
after the meeting,
I don't
are
want
we?
to do it without it.
Is the, president of the GSCD always that way?
Chairman?
No,
Chairman?
he's the only one we've ever had come to our meetings.
But for him to mandate
Oh,
that
yes.
again?
Oh,
yes.
that, you have no idea,
I was like, I'm sorry.
What he,
but it would have been supported by the board when he made it. We got him off of it.
yeah.
Because had they told us that his committee, at that time, Robbie Potts' committee, was going to be overridden cavalierly, I had my resignation. If they're gonna do that, they don't need me. My volunteering stops.
Well,
If
that's
they don't
why-
respect this group and how we operate.
That's why I took him to task on, well, what's the feeling about PFAS?
He drew some conclusions or assumptions that were totally unfounded, not researched, and erroneous.
Well, he will tell you his,
That's his modus operandi.
yeah, well,
There's a little.
there's
the
a lot
plot
of
is-
history.
The plot is a little thicker than
That's the
that.
culture issue I was telling him
So,
about.
just forget it. I don't-
Just for them.
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of
He's
history.
not gonna be chairman after.
No, he's not.
Good chance that,
Yeah,
Oh,
good
I-
chance he will.
It's not chairman. Okay, I like the way you said that. I think that Hillary has a better chance of being chairman than you.
No.
Well, I'm just saying.
Well, but then you have to think about whether Bill would popular vote, not fix it.
Well, we collected people, we have a problem with that.
Yes.
We gotta fix it.
Well, and outside the room.
So as debilitating as my sciatica was,
Yeah.
could do nothing.
Yeah.
All I could do was lay on my stomach and cry. I was taking Vicodin 6 times a day.
Oh, wow.
And I went to the surgery Friday, scheduled the surgery. I woke up Saturday and felt human. I've been going to the hot tub up at the town center. I've been soaking in Epsom salt baths and.
So we're-
So, are they still gonna do?
I can't tell you. If you wanted to cut them myself, I'd be out for like a long, long time.
I make enough, I'm not trying to get that one. Are you all set for Kirby?
No,
You're not going? Oh, we don't cancel.
They leave out the rest of us alone. We're on the same team.
Paul has feelings.
Well, you can still sit there, just don't have to talk.
two?
And I'm leaving right now, but I'm running a few minutes late.
Hi, Diane. You here in the dark? You know, they leave, they don't say anything. This thing's still running.